Welcome back to the channel. Today we will travel through the pages of What If Deku Gained Powers to Change His Fate Part 13. The link to the story will be in the description below, and if you want an update of the current series, join the Discord. Now let's start. Chapter 37. Izuku honestly didn't think that bringing Bakugo to Mementos would result in his awakening. Perhaps he should have suspected the possibility the first time he came to the metaverse, but it wasn't the first thought to cross his mind. But there he stood, wearing that same confident bordering on sadistic grin, his clothes having changed along with him. And above him hovered the mighty form of his persona. Holy shit, that guy really got one. Ryuji was the first to voice his surprise among them, and it was probably a shared sentiment. Should we be assisting him? Yusuke was the first to ask, looking at Izuku. We should probably wait until he needs the help. Makoto suggested, knowing the explosive blonde. Izuku didn't argue the point, even if he wanted to help. Still, seeing him with a persona, it's best to let him feel the power out for himself. Izuku knew in his heart that with the power of a persona at Kaken's disposal, there was little that could get in his way. Now, Tombstone. Blast these morons away. Bakugo gave the order, and his persona obeyed. It leveled the triple-barreled shotgun at the shadows that had previously stooped over him. Blue light shone from within the barrels before three beams shot out, engulfing the tunnel with explosions of nuclear magic. The purple shadow was thrown on its back, while the red one was sent hurtling backward. It snarled in defiance, letting out a roar as it charged forward. But it didn't seem to sway Bakugo. In fact, he restored the mask to his face, one hand sheathing the tomahawk he carried before blasting him into the air. It was as if the black gloves weren't there, allowing him to make his explosions without any sign of damage. Izuku could only guess that it was because they were clothes formed from his cognition. Go to hell. As he flew up high above the shadow swing, Bakugo took the tomahawk back from his belt and swung both across the eyes of the shadow. It cried out in pain, staggering back again as it clutched at its face. Bakugo landed on the ground, eyes watching his two opponents. They slowly stirred as the purple one finally rose to its feet and the red one wiped away what it could from the cuts on its face. TCH. You two still want more? Fine. Izuku felt his eyes bulge out of his head when he saw Bakugo draw a belt-fed minigun out of thin air, the barrels already revving up in anticipation. Eat this, shitheads. What the hell is that? Ryuji blanched. No one answered as the chain gun filled the air with a blinding barrage of lead, tearing into the bodies of both shadows. They both staggered back, arms and weapons raised in a meager attempt to defend themselves, the hail of bullets punching through them. Bakugo only released the trigger when both shadows fell to their knees. Now die. Bakugo threw his mask away again, Tombstone taking shape once more. This time, the barrels were loaded with scorching hot buckshot, blasting the shadows into black sludge that seeped back into the ground. Bakugo's chest rose and fell, a malicious grin on his face as his mask rematerialized and his persona faded away. It took a moment for the thieves to stir, all eyes on Bakugo as he stuffed his weapons away. He held up his hands to look at them, eyes narrowed. Holy shit, that was effing nuts. Ryuji mumbled as he looked at the others. I'm not sure if I should be relieved or a little disappointed that he got one too. Anne half joked, scratching her cheek with her index finger. It certainly does bring an interesting variable to the situation. What do you think, hero? Yusuke asked, eyes falling to Izuku. I don't know, was his honest answer. He walked forward, extending a hand. Kaken, out of my way, nerd. Izuku recoiled at Bakugo's quick reaction, eye twitching as he seemed to say that unhabit. He's not in your way, idiot. Makoto sighed, walking up alongside Izuku as the others followed close behind. Are you feeling better now that you've got that out of your system? Bakugo narrowed his eyes at Makoto, lips parting for a moment to say something before snapping his head away from her. I'm tired. Let's get the hell out of here. After all that, that's all you have to say? Morgana huffed, paws on his hips. I thought you'd at least be contemplating your new outfit or what you just learned about yourself. Shut it, mask it. Bakugo huffed as he staggered past them, clearly exhausted from his awakening. Mask it. Morgana's jaw dropped in utter horror. Stop being so damn stubborn. Didn't your persona tell you to let other people help? Ryuji tapped his foot impatiently. Ha. Bakugo snapped back. The hell are you talking about? Don't act like we didn't hear it. Aren't you supposed to give us a chance now? Anne smirked teasingly, her words visibly striking a chord in Bakugo as he stiffened, shoulders trembling as the face dusted with a faint blush. That's not what it was saying, damn it. No, it was quite clear about its implications. Yusuke gave a more welcoming smile as he extended a hand. Come now. Perhaps our start was less than cordial, but with your awakening we can put that all in the past. Do as your persona proclaimed and allow this gang of rebels to aid you. Buzz off, fox face. Bakugo snapped as his face became steaming red, eyes wide as a shark, as his brow became sharper than blades. I'll find my own way out. Bakugo stomped forward, teeth grinding as he went. His exhaustion became clear when he staggered again, nearly falling off balance before it was almost like they were bullying him. Only Kodo-san used to get away with that talk about a stubborn guy. Morgana shook his head, trotting up to Izuku's side and looking up at him. Still, something clearly changed in him. Not to mention he got a persona. If it weren't for his personality, I'd say he'd be a great ally to have. Izuku blinked, raising a brow at Morgana. An ally? You mean as a member of the team? Well, yeah, but even after the change he just experienced, you really think he'd want to work with us? Morgana asked, crossing his paws over his chest. Besides, even if he did, who knows if he'd really listen to us? Izuku's lips thinned into a line, eyes trailing after Bakugo's back. Several thoughts raced across his mind at all the possibilities. Bakugo was strong, there was no denying that. Even setting his persona aside, he was one of the few people with formal training for dealing with threats like shadows. But now he was more than capable of holding his own in a battle against a shadow. He had proven it only moments before. And after hearing what his persona and shadow had said, would Kaken consider working with us? Are you sure you want to do this? Morgana's voice hid none of his doubt, the cat eyeing him worriedly from over Izuku's shoulder. A day had passed since Bakugo's persona awakened, but Izuku decided to put the infiltration off for one more day. He stood now with Morgana and Makoto in Shibuya Station. I think it's worth a try. The worst he can do is say no, alright. Izuku offered even as sweat beaded down his forehead. You know that there's a lot more he can do than just that. Makoto shook her head, frowning in concern. Her eyes trailed ahead, pushing off the handrail she leaned on. He's here. Izuku swallowed the gathered spit in his mouth as he followed her gaze to Bakugo, the explosive blonde approaching with a resting scowl on his face, eyes narrowed at the three. I'm here. So what do you want, Deku? Bakugo asked, little patience in his voice. I already told you I don't give a shit about what you idiots do. I know, but I thought that now that you have a persona. Izuku found this question harder to come straight out with than he thought, doubt filling his mind. That you would consider joining us. Bakugo gave him the blankest stare Izuku had ever seen from him. Huh. We're extending you an invitation into the Phantom Thieves. Morgana leaned forward on Izuku's shoulder to make himself more visible. I have some reservations myself, as do some of our other teammates, but we can't deny that you'd make for a valuable asset if you were to join the team. Bakugo was silent for a long moment before letting out a loud scoff. Oh yeah, I bet you did. But what the hell would I gain out of this? I'd be up a creek if you idiots ever got caught. Izuku noted that it wasn't an outright rejection. Knowing Bakugo, if he wasn't interested, he would have walked off or thrown the idea in their faces and cursed them out. It's nearly impossible for anyone to find out we go to that world without the app we have on our phones. Only people who have been to the metaverse have it due to some circumstances. As for what you'd gain, I would say experience fighting. Makoto supplied, arms crossed over her chest. Bakugo's eyes darted to her and surprisingly held none of the malice that they had seen in his gaze the past several times they spoke. Shadows are strong opponents that will likely give you more field experience than any training than what UA can offer. Not to mention the chance to learn more creative ways to fight and learning to fight with a team. A strange concept, I know, but it could prove valuable for your future efforts. Bakugo seemed slightly irritated by the statement but didn't make any belligerent gaffe in denial. In fact, he looked more contemplative. He stroked his chin, eyes trailing to the side. Blowing those assholes away was a damn good workout. Where we go, there's plenty of shadows to deal with. Not to mention the palace ruler. Morgana pushed further. The more the team fights, the stronger we've all gotten. I'm sure you'd benefit quite well from joining the team. Bakugo stewed for a moment, eyes narrowing as he continued to consider the idea. But Izuku knew one thing had to be mentioned in all of this, and he was afraid it might be the deal-breaker for Bakugo. There is one thing, though. Bakugo's gaze trailed back up to Izuku. If you do join us, you have to follow my lead. The explosive blonde stiffened, his red eyes murderous. Huh. It has to be said. Izuku let out a deep breath, hardening his brow as he locked eyes with Bakugo. Like we said, you'll be joining our team. But we don't go blazing through palaces or mementos fighting everyone in the way. Sometimes we have to act stealthily and avoid unnecessary confrontations. When we fight, I need to have you on the same level as everyone else. A vein popped on Bakugo's head as his hand shook at his side. So now you want to tell me what to do, huh? Bakugo spun around, but his shoulders trembled as he stayed in place. Izuku couldn't tell what it was, but he looked almost hesitant. He half expected the explosive blonde to completely reject the idea and leave. But it looked like he still had a chance to convince him otherwise. Kaken, please. Izuku stepped closer to him, extending a hand. I do think you'd be valuable to the team, but we have to work together. There has to be some way that you'll at least consider it. Bakugo's shoulders finally stopped shaking, making Izuku stop his hand short from touching him. Bakugo slowly looked over his shoulder, eyes narrowed but not with hate. Izuku saw an almost curious glint in his gaze. Are you really strong enough to tell me what to do? Izuku blinked, unsure what he had said. What? You heard me. You're the leader here and you're the one jumping into the shark's tank fighting this asshole Yakuza. You even strong enough to do that? Bakugo slowly turned back around, his eyes settling back into a more calm scowl again. You want me to join? Show me you got what it takes. Show me how serious you are as the leader. Izuku felt some hope return. But then felt his face pale. There was only one thing in his mind that could convince Bakugo that he could think of, and it wasn't wholly unexpected. Izuku sucked in a breath of air and calmed his nerves, nodding in understanding. Okay. If that's what you want, then I will. Bakugo grinned ear to ear. Looks like you get the picture for once. Ryuji rarely disagreed with Izuku's ideas. The kid was smart, way smarter than he was. Not to mention he put a lot of faith in his decisions as team leader and as his best friend. But when Izuku made his intentions to recruit Bakugo into the thieves the day prior, he felt a little more than tentative about the idea. He could see the potential of having someone like that on the team with how he and Makoto explained it, but no one would argue that the guy's personality was the most agreeable. Still, understanding why Izuku made the decision, Ryuji agreed to work with him if they were successful in recruiting Bakugo. Though to his shame, he did half hope that the explosive blonde would reject their offer. So he was decidedly a bit disappointed when he got the text late the previous night that Bakugo would indeed be joining as part of the team for the palace. Hey. Ryuji drew his gaze up to Anne, the twin-tailed blonde frowning in concern. You okay? Huh? Why yeah. Why do you ask? Ryuji tried to cover up his worries, though Anne didn't seem to buy it. Come on. I can tell you were on edge when Izuku told us what he was gonna do. Anne gave a half smile, offering him a drink. Here. Maybe it'll help you chill. Thanks. Ryuji took the bottle, feeling a minor comfort as the drink fizzed in his mouth. You really think that guy's gonna be helpful? Well, he was definitely strong when he summoned his persona. Anne shrugged, leaning on the railing next to him as she twirled the end of her left hair tail. And he fought pretty evenly with Makoto. It was nice to see her smack him up a bit though. Ryuji grinned as he recalled the first time Makoto slammed him into the ground. Just a little bit, Anne snickered next to him, but became thoughtful again. Still, I really have to wonder how much he'll actually get along when it comes to infiltrating the palace. Yeah, it's been bugging me pretty bad. Ryuji scratched the back of his head. Makoto told us he wasn't great when they first met and was kinda a bully to Izuku. I'm still wondering how they got him to agree. Perhaps we shouldn't dwell too long on it. Ryuji drew his attention to Yusuke as the Kasei student joined them at their hideout. At least now we can finally focus on our main objective of taking down this Yakuza boss. And with added firepower. Yeah, guess you're right. Ryuji relented, looking at Anne. We'll just have to deal with it as we go. Ah, he's here. Yusuke was the first to point out. Ryuji got off the rail with Anne, both standing up as Bakugo walked up to them. Ryuji saw little change in the ever-present glare in his eyes as he scanned the three, eyebrow cocked. Oh, you extras are already here. Ryuji felt his eye twitch in irritation. Who the hell you callin' extras? We're gonna be working together from now on, you know. He snapped. Yeah. So you better remember our names. Anne crossed her arms, no less irritated than Ryuji. Bakugo clicked his tongue, stuffing his hands in his pockets. Whatever. Tell me your damn names and quirks then. Man, and he was even worse than this before. Ryuji huffed, scratching his head. Fine. I'm Ryuji Sakamoto. My quirk is called Spark Speed. I store energy in my kneecaps and use it to run real fast. And Takamaki, and don't forget it. My quirk is Razor Teeth. I can practically bite through anything. I am Yusuke Kitagawa. My quirk is called Ink Dispenser. It has no offensive capabilities unfortunately. The painter spoke up last. The explosive blonde scanned his eyes across them, silent for a moment before grunting. I'll see if you're worth remembering as we go. What the hell kinda attitude is that? Ryuji snapped in irritation. Aren't you supposed to have changed already? The hell do you mean changed? Bakugo challenged, glaring back at Ryuji. Just let him be. Anne pulled on his shoulder, rolling her eyes. A guy like that isn't going to change overnight. Let's focus on working together to get through the palace, okay? Ryuji grumbled a bit, irritation evident as his hand balled into a fist. Why yeah, Anne is right. Bakugo-san. You are now a member of the Phantom Thieves, Yusuke pointed out, bringing the explosive blonde's attention to him. I don't quite know the circumstances of your recruitment, but we have come together in order to stop the unseen injustices of this world. As a team. We need you to act accordingly to that. Or are you incapable of doing so? Yusuke's words seemed to hit a nerve, Bakugo's teeth ground against one another at the thought. TCH. Whatever. I'll play along. Just don't hold me back. Same goes for you. We do just fine working together. Ryuji pointed a finger at Bakugo. Last thing we need is you going rogue. Like you have to worry about that. Bakugo huffed, turning his back to them. I already agreed to what Deku said, so can it? Ryuji shared a glance with Anne, both doubtful of his words, but not having long to think on it. Izuku and Makoto entered the hallway soon after with Morgana, the three carrying a couple bags. Sorry we're late. I wanted to make sure we were fully supplied for the heist. Izuku announced as they joined them. Took you long enough. We doing this or what? Bakugo huffed. Yes, now that we're all here, we can get going. Morgana answered. We'll give you a full rundown of what's going on and who we're targeting on the way to Asakusa. Good. Bakugo stomped forward, heading for their transfer. The others sighed tiredly, Ryuji looking at Izuku. You sure this is gonna be alright? Yeah, I'm confident it'll be okay. Izuku gave a smile in reassurance, despite the bit of glistening sweat on his brow. Kaken agreed to get along. I know it seems like a lot to deal with, but I think he'll be a great help. Ryuji's lips tightened as he thought it over before relenting. Alright, I trust you, I just hope you're right. Ugh. I totally forgot about the smell of this palace. The first thing the team was greeted with was the horrible stench that once again invaded their noses, wrinkled as they tried to stifle the smell somewhat, but it was pungent and wafted all around them. Seriously, what the hell's up with that? Ryuji grumbled, hand over his nose. It's ungodly. Like rotting meat, Yusuke groused in disgust. Considering this is part of Chisaki's cognition, I hate to imagine what it is. Makoto mumbled, barely wanting to open her mouth in fear she may even taste the foul stench. Be on guard, everyone. Last time we were attacked just outside the palace, remember? Izuku reminded them, even as he covered his face. Hey, losers. Bakugo called out, drawing their attention to him. The explosive blonde pointed further down the alley. You don't have to guess what the smell is. Look. They drew their attention further down the alley, all going pale as they took the sight in. Their stomachs twisted as they gazed upon the bodies scattered throughout the alley floor. Izuku partially wondered just how distracted they had been to have missed such a thing in their previous visit. It was no less unsettling. Dude, Ryuji's jaw slacked as he stared, eyes wide as plates. Does he just think of everyone else's dead meat or something? Cough cough. The group was startled when one of the supposedly dead bodies let out a hacking cough, drawing them out of their stupor. As someone's alive, Izuku rushed forward, stooping next to one of the rotting bodies. They're not real. Who cares? Bakugo grunted out, but no less approached with a curious glint in his gaze. Maybe, but it might tell us more about the mindset of who we're dealing with. Makoto pointed out, walking behind Izuku. How are they? Barely alive. They're clearly sick, though, but I don't know what kind of sickness makes someone rot before they die. Izuku trailed off, afraid to touch the cognitive creation with how rotten its body seemed to be. It seems that they're all alive. Looking at them all now, Yusuke drew their attention up to the other supposed corpses scattered throughout the alley. I can see some of them still breathing. He's right, they're all alive, Anne mumbled, biting her bottom lip. But I don't get it, why are they like this? They're representative of how Chisaki views the world around him, so I guess he views everyone as sick and rotten. Morgana sounded no less perturbed than the others, eyes showing his disturbance. But I thought what he viewed as a sickness was heroics. Anne mused, keeping her nose tightly squeezed between her thumb and index. Perhaps it's the love of heroics that he views as the sickness. Yusuke suggested, eyes narrowed in disgust. Society has held heroes in high regard for some time. People in general are affected by their work day after day. So this sick bastard just sees people as walking corpses. Ryuji spat, gritting his teeth. Weren't Yakuza types about honor and shit? He's criminal scum no matter how you look at it. Bakugo huffed, turning his back on the bodies. Stop wasting time. We'll learn more about the asshole as we trash the place. The others shared a look of hesitation, but silently agreed with his remark. They left behind the rotting cognitive bodies, heading for the end of the alley and peering around. Another guard similar to the one before in white scrubs stood guard. Alright. Let's blast our way through. Bakugo grinned as he pounded his fists together. Wait, Kaken. We're not going through the front. Izuku stopped him, causing Bakugo to whip around. Why not? We're trying to infiltrate the palace without attracting every shadow's attention. Duh. Morgana shook his head, looking at the fence surrounding the compound. We'll need to find an infiltration point where we can go in and out quietly. This heist may take more than one day. So let's not waste too much energy by recklessly busting through the front door. TCH. That's way too roundabout. Bakugo crossed his arms over his chest. We should be busting down their front door and looking for the boss from the start. The faster we get this done, the faster that asshole's put down in the real world. We have firepower to fight a few shadows, but there are a lot more than just a few. Makoto retorted, shaking her head. If we were to take the palace straight on, we would have no end of enemies to deal with. We would have to retreat and end up making too little progress in the process. Not to mention the palace ruler isn't the objective. Yusuke added this time. Our objective is to steal his treasure so that his cognition will change. Then why don't we just drag his ass out and make him tell us where the damn thing is? Bakugo remained indignant, his eyes narrowed. It's not that simple. The palace ruler can be far more terrifying than their real-world counterparts when push comes to shove. Morgana tapped his foot as he tried to remain patient. The risk of attacking head-on far outweighs the reward. Not to mention we have to go through a process to make the treasure materialize to begin with. They're right, Kaken. This is a lot more complicated than you think. Izuku spoke again, dragging the frustrated glare of Bakugo to him. Bakugo opened his mouth to complain, eyes meeting Izuku's. Seeing the silent order, Bakugo's cheek twitched before he turned around in a huff. Fine. Let's find another way in, then. Izuku breathed a sigh of relief. He's keeping his word. Good. Izuku spared a glance around, looking for other options. The wall surrounding the compound wasn't too large, so scaling it wouldn't be too difficult. Let's go. Izuku called back, taking the lead. The others hurried behind him, even Bakugo. It was clear the explosive blonde wanted to say something, but he held back. Izuku knew it was best not to question it. They stuck closely to the walls as they circled around the gate, making sure to stay out of sight of the shadows guarding it. The wall was a little taller than expected, around 3 meters high, but Izuku was used to vaulting such heights by now. Not to mention the tool that Mei had given him earlier. I'll go first. Izuku drew his grappling gun and aimed at the top of the wall. The line shot out with a soft pop, hooking onto the edge and pulling him up as he released the trigger. Landing in a crouch, he hopped along the edge of the wall and peered over. In front of him was a traditional Japanese garden that looked like something you'd see at a temple, with paved tile walkways, meticulously trimmed bonsai trees, and a freshly mowed lawn. In fact, the layout of the palace looked surprisingly similar to its real-world counterpart. The only differences were that the windows looked like they were made of reinforced plexiglass, and the heavy wooden doors were replaced with sliding ones. To his surprise, there weren't any guards stationed at them. Alright, the coast is clear. Izuku said, motioning for them to follow. He drew out the rope and hook Morgana provided to him, sending down a line for the others to climb with. He hopped down, allowing them space to follow behind as he continued to scan the courtyard for more shadows. It's strange, I thought there'd be more security around the palace entrance. Izuku raised a brow in wonder, activating his third eye to see if there were any hidden traps lying around. Again, he saw nothing. Shouldn't they be more wary of intruders? He was drawn from his thoughts when he heard the others climbing over, each one landing on the grass behind him. Where the hell did you get this stuff? Bakugo asked, eyes pointed at the grappling gun still in Izuku's hand. Well, I have a friend who makes them in exchange for favors, Izuku explained, wondering if he should say much about Mei Hatsume, since they went to the same school. Oh yeah, he's got this crazy girl from UA who helps make his stuff. Izuku almost fell over when Ryuji blurted it out. She's kinda weird, but she makes good stuff. Which reminds me. She made this awesome knee brace for me. Everyone drew their eyes to Ryuji as he pulled out the knee brace that Mei had invented for stabilizing his quirk. With a rough pinch around his knee and a wince, Ryuji fastened it into place, turning it on and watching the lights flash on to show it was running. Now I can use my quirk without any issue. She's kinda nuts, but she effin' rocks. Whoa, really, that's incredible. Anne leaned over, eyes shining as she inspected it. I'm so happy for you, Skull. Indeed. Not to mention it should come in handy helping us during battle. Nuts. Bakugo's eye twitched subconsciously. Was it crosshair eyes? That sounds like her, probably. Ryuji raised a brow. Know her? Yeah. Bakugo grimaced as the word left his mouth. Hey, just because the coast is clear doesn't mean it's safe. Morgana reminded them, eyes darting around. Let's find an entry into the compound. Not wasting any time, the thieves started to move, sprinting across the courtyard with their eyes peeled. Again, Izuku noted the lack of enemies guarding the area. Is it because he doesn't know we're coming? I guess the outer perimeters of the previous palaces weren't heavily guarded either, but he let the thought go as they soon reached the side of the main compound, walking to the edge of the wall to get a view of the main entrance. That was clearly locked down, the main doors shut tight and looking less than inviting. Well, we're here. What now? Ryuji asked, looking around. Doesn't look like we got a lot of places to enter from. Perhaps we could scale the side of the building like at Madarum's. It should prove more fruitful than our current position. Yusuke recommended. Good idea, Fox. Let's see if we can gain a better vantage point. Morgana turned his attention to Izuku. You're up again, hero. Right. Izuku gripped the grappling gun in hand and used his third eye to find a sturdy hold along the roof for him to grapple to. Spotting a steel ventilation pipe, he fired the hook and flew through the air, landing gracefully on the roof. He scanned the rooftop, looking for an easy way in. Thankfully, there was an air duct large enough for them to crawl through that led inside. He waited for the others to climb before pointing it out. We can get in through there. This is going a little too smoothly. You would think that the Yakuza would be more on edge, right? Makoto mused, stroking her chin. Maybe. But they don't know we're coming, so that could play a part in it. Morgana didn't sound so sure about that, but it was still a reasonable thought. We'll put him on notice soon enough. Bakugo grinned darkly, looking anxious to get into a fight. Easy there, Sparky. Anne rolled her eyes before realization crossed her face. Oh, that reminds me. We haven't given you a code name yet. Huh? Oh yeah, we do gotta give him one. Ryuji agreed, the group gathering around Bakugo and looking thoughtful. The hell do I need one for? Bakugo narrowed his eyes in irritation. We don't want to go shouting our names all over the palace, obviously. Who knows what that'll do to the ruler's cognition. Morgana pointed out. I thought they don't know jack about what goes on in the palace. Bakugo pointed out. It's better to be safe than sorry. It's still part of the unconscious mind. Makoto reminded him, crossing her arms. Well, since we're going over a code name for you, do you have any ideas for what we call you? Bakugo's eyes drifted to the side for a moment before returning to them. Lord Explosion Murder. The hell kinda code name is that? Ryuji raised an incredulous brow. Huh, what's wrong with it? For one, it's rather long. For another, it's inelegant and unbefitting of a phantom thief. Yusuke pointed out, shaking his head in distaste. You'll have to come up with something else. I was afraid of this. Baka-chan's never been good at naming anything. Makoto pinched the bridge of her nose. Screw you. I'll come up with something great. Bakugo snapped again. I'll be Thief Explicit in Murder. So, I guess we'll have to figure out a code name for him, huh? Anne suggested as the group practically turned their back on Bakugo. Screw you guys. Izuku found it both terrifying and comical that they were practically making Bakugo of all people feel like the outsider. He's got that cowboy look. How's cowboy sound? Ryuji shrugged. Seems a little on the nose though, doesn't it? Anne wrinkled her nose. Oh. Maybe desperado. That seems a little long compared to everyone else's though. Makoto pointed out, shaking her head. Well, considering his quirk and the likely use of it, perhaps we can go off of that. Yusuke reasoned. It would match his personality as well. The hell's that supposed to mean? Fox-faced Bakugo complained from the back. Oh, maybe firecracker. Anne grinned in amusement. Hell no. Maybe Explody. Ryuji snickered. You wanna die? Bakugo's left eye twitched in irritation as his voice fell an octave. Alright, come on guys. As much as I'd love to keep making fun of Baka-chan, we have a heist to start. Makoto gave a smirk that further infuriated the explosive blonde. Let's see how about Gunslinger. Considering his firearm is a minigun, I do wonder if that would be considered accurate. Yusuke interjected. He then turned to Izuku. Do you have any ideas, hero? Me? Izuku felt some pressure as Bakugo shifted a seething glare his way. You might as well give one, too. We're all having a little trouble. Morgana shrugged. Yeah, Deku. Go ahead. Bakugo's underlying threat didn't go unnoticed. Izuku laughed awkwardly as he scratched his cheek. Well, when I think of Kaken I do think of his quirk before his cowboy look, so a name suddenly came to him, Izuku turning with a curious look at the explosive blonde. What about Nitro? Bakugo opened his mouth to argue, but found his words dying in his throat, eyes trailing to the side as if thinking about it. Yeah, Nitro. That's a good one. Ryuji nodded in agreement. It's like he's our explosives expert. It's almost too good for him, nice job, Hero Ann mumbled. It's short and to the point. I couldn't agree more. Yusuke gave his approval. So, Baka-chan. Nitro work for you? Makoto asked, arms crossed as she watched him. Fine, whatever. It works. Bakugo huffed, clicking his tongue before pointing a finger at Makoto. But you gotta stop calling me that, moron. Oh, fine. Just remember to refer to everyone by their codenames and not by your stupid nicknames. Makoto reminded him back. Yeah. Tell me what they are then. I'm Ona. Hero. Skull. Panther. Fox. And I'm Queen. Bakugo raised a brow when Makoto announced her name last before a smug grin spread across his face. So, you still hung on to that name, Biker Queen? Makoto's face turned rosy as he said that. Shut up. It was still better than Lord Explosion Murder. Seriously, did you just throw a bunch of words you thought were cool together or something? Come on, guys. We have to save our energy for the palace. Izuku stepped between them before a real argument could break out, quickly turning to Bakugo. So remember, from now on we'll call you Nitro. And do the same with the rest of our codenames, okay? Bakugo grumbled in annoyance but gave a stiff nod. Yeah, Izuku shifted back to their current objective. Gaining entry. Striking the corner of the vent with his staff loosened it enough for his persona to peel it away and let him jump inside. As he reached the bottom, he struck the second vent hard enough to unlatch it, landing on the wooden beams that hung over the entrance. The main hall looked like one of the old Japanese castles you'd see on brochures. Hickory wood floors with red painted walls and sliding doors on each side, somewhat reminiscent of the halfway point in Madaram's palace, but far less gaudy. Unlike the shadow guarding the main entrance, the ones patrolling these halls were dressed in colorful suits with dragons and tigers emblazoned on their backs. Let's see if we can find a map of the layout. Morgana suggested, hopping down from the scaffolding to hide behind a corner wall. There must be an officer leader somewhere, why would they have a map of the place? Bakugo's brow quirked in wonder. Who knows? Guess the shadows get lost in the place too. Ryuji shrugged, scratching his head. Every palace has had a map so far. Shadow incoming, Makoto alerted them. I don't think we'll be able to sneak around it to get through this hall. Doesn't look like any other shadows close by. Morgana confirmed as he scanned the hall before looking at Izuku. What do you want to do, hero? Let's take it out. Izuku got ready to jump, knees bent as he got ready to pounce. Wait until it gets lit, I'll take it. Izuku's voice hitched when Bakugo jumped out of cover and blasted forward, grinning like a maniac as he popped an explosion in the shadow's face. Come out, asshole. The shadow's back slammed into the ground, groaning in pain. Why you damn brat, its body quickly dissolved and took the shape of the same red Oni demon from before, with another shadow materializing with it. A muscular monster with the head of a horse, cloven feet, and skin the color of blood. Finally, a new one of you things. I was getting tired of fighting the same damn mugs over and over again. Bakugo drew a tomahawk from his waist in his right hand, twirling it in his fingers like a drumstick. At least he waited for confirmation, sighed Makoto, quickly running out to join Bakugo with the others right next to her. Who are you brats to try and force your way into our compound? The horseman hissed. You trying to piss off the 8 precepts, piss off, don't make me laugh. Bakugo propelled himself forward with his free hand, a tomahawk swinging down and slashing into the shadow's chest. We're just here to take out the trash. Graw. The shadow grunted, swinging its arm back at Bakugo to swat him away. Bakugo evaded, flipping back and avoiding it with a quick propulsing blast. Zoro. Morgana summoned his persona, blasting a gale of slicing wind into both shadows. The red demon grunted, but the horseman waved it off with little annoyance. It then lunged at Bakugo with its hoofed foot, hitting him before he could move out of the way. The explosive team grunted as he was sent backwards, lifting off the ground for several meters before his feet skidded to a stop. Not so tough now, brat. The horseman cackled, hopping in place and getting ready for another attack. Bastard, Bakugo spat as he brushed off his stomach and reached for his mask. But before he could attack, Izuku made his move, drawing off his mask first. Lean and Sid. Izuku summoned one of his newly fused personas, a pale-skinned woman with flowing blonde hair, pointed ears and a silky purple dress taking shape above him. In her hands were 2 silver hooks linked together at the top, her position that of someone seated in thin air. Seo. The Celtic figure held the hooks forward, unleashing a barrage of psychedelic-colored orbs that slammed into the horse-like shadow, causing it to stumble back in agony. I'll take it from here. Makoto followed up, flying overhead on Johanna and driving its front wheel into the shadow's chest. The tire let out a powerful shockwave, the follow-up causing the shadow to fall flat on its back from the force. Hey, I had it handled. Bakugo snapped in irritation. It's called teamwork, dude. Ryuji huffed before gritting his teeth. Hey, here comes Big Red. The 3 got the warning just soon enough, managing to avoid a swing of the demon's blade as it charged at them. Gomen. Yusuke didn't allow it to go much further, a misty cloud blasting into the demon and blasting it with ice. As a lucky turn, the ice was able to freeze the shadow's body. It's frozen. Someone follow up. You got it. Captain Kidd. Ryuji bursted forward, his persona slamming the hull of the ship directly into the shadow's head. It toppled the demon, the ice shattering as the damage was doubled by their technical shot. Alright, time for an all-out attack. Morgana called out and the thieves lined up together. Try to keep up, Nitro. TCH. Bakugo blasted forward, joining the team as he hacked away with the others at the shadows, causing their bodies to spurt black ooze before ultimately dissipating. The group took a moment to settle down, brushing themselves off before looking around. Man, we're getting real good at this. Ryuji grinned, stuffing his hands in his pockets. That was easy. Yeah. We've really improved since Kamoshida. Anne held one arm above her head and stretched it out, smiling. We can't let our guard down, though. There's still plenty of shadows around that we probably haven't seen yet. Izuku reminded them, but gave a smile of approval. But yeah, we really have improved. Hey, Ba Nitro. Remember that you have to follow Hero's lead. Makoto drew the explosive blonde's gaze to her. We usually let him initiate the battles with the shadows. Huh? What's it matter who starts it? Bakugo snapped, placing a hand on his hip. So long as we all know we're fighting, who cares who takes the first hit? I suppose he's not wrong. Morgana crossed his small arms over his chest. I guess we've just fallen into a habit of letting Hiro take the lead on that. If you want us to, we can take turns initiating battle, Hiro. It would take some of the work off of you. Yusuke offered thoughtfully. Oh, well, I don't really mind doing it, but if everyone is on the same page about who we attack, I guess it can be anyone who initiates. Izuku nodded, seeing the logic. Bakugo gave Makoto a smug grin. I win. A blind squirrel finds an acorn once in a while, I suppose. Makoto rolled her eyes as she walked away from the explosive blonde. Come on, let's go. We've still got plenty of ground to cover. Yeah. That's just one fight of many to come. Keep your eyes peeled. Morgana reminded them, the others nodding in agreement before following after. So, were you shocked? Ryuji nudged Bakugo as he passed him. Hiro's pretty amazing, huh? Shocked? Why would I be? Bakugo quirked a brow. I don't know, maybe the fact that he has more than one persona. Bakugo stared at Ryuji blankly before scoffing, turning his back on him to follow the others. I already knew that. Ryuji blinked owlishly, watching as the explosive blonde left him behind. Wah, since when? Hey, since when? Quiet, Skull. There are still shadows running around. Anne hissed back, causing the faux blonde to clam up. It wasn't long after that the group took down several more shadows, most unimpressive. They wandered the long wooden halls looking for any hints towards finding the treasure. But every hallway looked almost identical to the next. It was nearly impossible to tell if they had walked down the same path twice. It was eerie how mundane the place looked compared to the previous palaces they had infiltrated. They soon came upon an open hall, the front door just to their left and a reception desk to their right. A shadow stood behind it and had failed to see them, sitting behind the desk and lazily reading some obscure magazine. TSK. We're back at the main entrance. Bakugo cursed as they hid around the corner of a wall. I told you we shoulda just blasted through the main door. You don't know what kind of alarm system they have here. Morgana hissed in response, but did look somewhat confused. Still only one guard at the main entrance. What's with this lackluster security? I did expect more from a hardened criminal as this Kai Chisaki. Yusuke noted, stroking his chin. Especially if he's as heinous as Boss said. Who the hell is Boss? Bakugo looked only further confused. That's not important right now. We should take down the shadow behind the desk. Makoto suggested, eyes trailing back to the others. If we're going to get a map, it'll be from there. Queen has a point. Ready to jump in there, Hiro? Morgana looked to Izuku. Yeah. No room for stealth here. Let's get the jump on him before he sounds any alarms. Don't have to tell me twice. Bakugo got ready to step out, only for Morgana to stop him short. Wait. How about we get him to come here first? That way we're sure he doesn't set off any alarm from that desk. Bakugo huffed, rolling his eyes. You're all way too roundabout. Fine. Alright. How are we getting his attention? Ryuji asked. Pop the thieves jumped at the sudden noise, looking at Bakugo who held up his hand, having made a small explosion in his palm. That should do the trick. Warn us next time. Anne complained in a fit. But before any further words could be spared, the group was soon greeted by the shadow guard from the table. The hell was that noise? What the hell? Well, it definitely worked. Ryuji grit his teeth as he gripped his bat. Izuku quickly dashed forward, slamming his expandable staff into the chest of the shadow's cognitive body. It didn't topple over though, only groaning before allowing its body to take shape from the black ooze. A large figure formed from it, one similar in stature to the red-skinned demon. This time though it was a blue-skinned, with a hole where its face would have been. It wore a white garb and a swirling black pattern on its chest and purple armor resting on its forearms and collar. You brats don't know who you're fucking with. I'll thrash you and toss you out. The shadow didn't hesitate to make the first move, twirling the double-bladed sword it wielded in front of him like a fan. A powerful gale of wind blasted across the thieves, causing them to grit their teeth and wait for the attack to pass. Gah. But on one end, Ryuji was still the most vulnerable to wind, the attack knocking him off his feet. Skull. Anne was the first to call out, quickly stepping in front of him with a defensive posture. I'll take the first shot. With his inherent resistance to wind, Morgana was the first to be able to move freely, dashing forward and leaping in the air. Zoro. Lucky punch. A boxing glove on a spring materialized from thin air and slammed into the shadow. Unfortunately, luck was not on Morgana's side, the attack doing little if any damage to their opponent. Oh. Pathetic. The shadow retaliated by swinging its free hand into Morgana, sending him reeling backward on the ground. The cat let out a pained meow, stumbling on his paws to regain his composure. Let's hit it, Nitro. Makoto rushed forward, arms reinforced with metal. Don't get in my way. Despite his protest, Bakugo blasted after her, both rearing their melee weapons back and laying into the shadow. Makoto punched across the shadow's ribs, while Bakugo used an explosion to do the same on the opposite side. The shadow wailed in pain, but neither was able to break through its skin. Still, it staggered in pain, unable to immediately retaliate. Allow me. Yusuke dashed past them, katana drawn and mist shimmering along its edge. He slashed across the shadow's arm and weapon, leaving a sharp gash along them. In the cut, the mist lingered before piercing ice shards erupted. Gah! My arm. The shadow wailed in agony, trembling as it held up the frozen limb. What did you return, Skull? Leave it to me. Super Speed, zooming past the thieves at blinding speed, Ryuji smashed the shadow's frostbitten arm into tiny shards. Home run. Gaagh, hell yeah. Ryuji grinned wickedly, giving a thumbs up. Let's finish him. Great job. Izuku and Anne threw off their masks, unleashing Matador and Carmen to send a wave of psychic energy and fire at the hapless shadow. With one last cry of agony, it fell apart and faded from existence. Well, that didn't go too poorly. Morgana rubbed his sore behind, looking up at the others. Everyone alright? All good on this end. Ryuji walked over to Yusuke, the two bumping arms together. Great combo, man. You two pulled off an impressive maneuver. But how did you cover your blade with your ice like that? Makoto inquired, curious. After seeing that we can use our persona's elements without summoning them, I thought to try and use Gomen's ice through my sword. It turned out fantastically. Yusuke said with a proud smile. Yeah, and I was able to charge my knees up no sweat with my electric energy. I can pretty much use it whenever. Ryuji grinned, electricity sparking around his palms. That was pretty cool. Anne let out a short giggle as she gave a teasing smile. Still though, I think you should work on a name for that move. Super speed home run just doesn't have a good ring to it. What? Aw, come on, it wasn't that bad. You talk too much. Bakugo walked back over to the group, shoving a piece of paper into Izuku's hands. There's the map. Now we can stop running around like chickens with their heads cut off. Oh, thanks Nitro. Don't thank me. Izuku smiled despite his sharp reply, unfurling the map and showing it to everyone. Okay, so we're in the main lobby right here. Izuku pointed out their location for the others, eyes narrowing. Is it me or is this map kinda small? Anne asked, tilting her head in wonder. It does look small, but look at the top corner, Morgana pointed out the 1F on the map. Looks like there's more to this place than we've seen so far. Which means this map isn't complete. Huh? This thing doesn't give us the whole layout. Bakugo spat, leaning forward to look over the map for himself. No. The previous palaces split their maps up into several sections. Looks like the same applies for this one. Makoto pointed out before tapping another part of the map. Look here, though. There's an elevator on this floor. We'll probably need that to go deeper into the palace. Hey, it's not far from here. Ryuji grinned, looking up at the halls around them. Should just be up a few doors to the left hall and near the center. Then let's stop standing around and go. Bakugo barked, walking ahead of them. Man, he's definitely a good fighter. But he's still a pain in the ass. Ryuji huffed, trailing behind the others with Anne as they followed after the explosive blonde. It didn't take long for them to reach the elevator. They decided to avoid the shadows along the way, staying in darkness and allowing them to pass by. Bakugo made several faces that clearly showed his desire to engage, but held himself back. Alright, we're here. Izuku announced as they entered the small room. While it was modest enough in design, the elevator stood out, looking out of place with large steel doors sealed tight, barring their entry. On the side, the mechanism for calling the elevator was a digital keypad with a slot for a card to be inserted. Something of smaller note was a safe room just outside the room, which they had quickly visited to establish on their metanav. That can't be good, Izuku mumbled as he took notice. He walked up and hit the button to call the elevator, only for the keypad to buzz. Floor officer card required. Floor officer. But none of the shadows have dropped anything like that. Anne's brow creased in annoyance. I'm guessing that means the standard grunts aren't allowed into the lower levels. Makoto bit her bottom lip. We'll have to find the floor officers among the shadows. Damn it. Just when I started thinking this was gonna be simple, Ryuji cursed, kicking his foot across the oak flooring. There's nothing to be done about it. Let's look at the map again and see if there's any clues as to where we can find an officer. Yusuke suggested. They gathered back around Izuku as he brought the map out, looking at the layout. We don't have much left to explore on this floor, but this room might be what we're looking for. Izuku pointed out a particularly big office a little ways further down the hall from their location. It's a start. I imagine that an officer would have their own office, at least. Makoto nodded. The others quickly agreed, soon following after Izuku. As they went back into the hall, they quickly realized that there were no shadows patrolling this time. As if the ones who previously roamed the halls had all been called back. Where did they go? Izuku mumbled, eyes darting around. I don't like this, keep your guard up. We know better than to not expect shadows from popping up out of thin air. Morgana cautioned the group. They slowly proceeded forward, the empty halls painfully quiet without the mumbling shadows walking around. The quiet continued for several minutes, the thieves feeling their anxiety grow as they scanned their surroundings for any sign of an enemy. But were met with silence. They must know we're here, but if so, why empty the hall? Makoto chewed on her thumb. It's obvious, ain't it? The thieves turned their attention to Bakugo, the dirty blonde's eyes narrowed in suspicion. We're heading into a trap. Why you think so? Anne swallowed a lump in her throat, looking to Izuku. Is it really okay for us to keep going? We don't have much choice, we only have one way to reach the lower floors after all, Izuku hated to admit, looking down the hall with some apprehension. But this wouldn't be a first for us. Stay alert and we'll thwart whatever they throw at us. Yeah. Just like every other trap. Ryuji placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. Bakugo looked on with a skeptical gaze. How many traps have you idiots walked into? That's not important. What's important is that we've gotten through them all. Morgana tried his best to sound confident despite some of the awkward shifting from his teammates. Part of being a phantom thief is being ready to adapt on the fly. I hope you're ready for that, Nitro. TCH. Don't underestimate me. Bakugo stormed past them. Let's bring this trap. Always quick to jump in, Makoto let out a snicker, she and the others keeping pace with the explosive teen. They quickly turned another corner, fast approaching their target location. The hall mirrored the rest of the floor, only with one major exception. The room they were quickly approaching had a major visible difference compared to the rest of the rooms they had scoured. Instead of the traditional sliding doors they had previously seen, this room was locked behind a metal and glass door. Huh. This door's real different than the others. Ryuji noted, watching Izuku slowly approach the plaque sitting next to the door. What's it say? Chisaki's clean room. Izuku read aloud for the others to hear. Why would he? Well, WELL looks like we've got a rat infestation. The group immediately snapped their attention to the voice, hairs standing on end when they were greeted with three figures at the edge of the hall. Unlike the previous shadows, these men were far more defined in appearance and looked more like regular human beings. The first was a man with neck-length blonde hair, black slacks, and a forest green dress shirt adorned with an out-of-place pink tie. On his face was a long-nosed medicine mask, much like the one Izuku had seen Chisaki sport. The next was the tallest among the three, a bald man with a plain white surgical mask. The first three buttons on his black button-up were left undone, his eyes imperceptible beneath his furrowed jutting brow. The last and most disturbing among them was a man covered head to shoulders by a burlap sack, held in place by loose rope around his throat. His eyes bulged out of the eyeholes. A low, gurgling sound could be heard behind the stitched-on mouth. His hands twitched sporadically, his gaze dancing from one person to the next. So we really do have intruders. What inconvenient timing. The bald one spoke, arms crossed over his chest. Tasty, they look tasty, eat. The baghead spoke, his voice as unsettling as his appearance. What the hell, these guys look like the real deal. Ryuji stared wide-eyed at the trio, hand restlessly gripping his bat. Why yeah, they're nothing like the other shadows, but somehow they're more intimidating, Anne mumbled, a deep dread coming over her as she wearily eyed the hungry-looking Yakuza. Looks like we've sprung the trap. Morgana's eyes narrowed in suspicion. Though something is strange about them. Who are you calling rats, Yakuza trash? Bakugo snarled, hands cracking as he curled his fingers. Hey, now. Throwing around words like trash is kin to mean, you know. The blonde one took a step forward, eyes glaring into Bakugo's. I might have had to bash your skull in for that, brat. Hold on, Satsuno. These are clearly children we're dealing with. The bald one spoke, putting an arm in front of him. You're all dressed up like would-be heroes, but none of you are old enough to have your licenses. Who are you and what are you doing here? Depending on your answer, we might let you off with just a beating before we dump you out. No, eat, burlap sack whined. Chill out, Tabe. You'll get to eat a little. The blonde cackled, eyes glaring back at Bakugo again. Even if we let him off easy, we'll have to take a couple fingers so that they got a good reminder of who they're fucking with. How appalling, so these are the real Yakuza, Yusuke muttered, hand edging toward his sword. Looks like we can't talk our way out of this so easily. Izuku bit the inside of his cheek, walking several paces ahead of the others. So we might as well tell the truth. Hero? Makoto watched him in wonder, the thieves staring at his back. We're the phantom thieves of hearts. Izuku suddenly proclaimed with a sharp edge in his voice. We've come to steal your leader's heart and save Eri-chan. Holy shit, he really said all that. Ryuji mumbled in awe of their leader. Ha. Now you're showing some backbone. Bakugo cackled, stepping up alongside him. You trash, hear that? Now eat shit and get out of our way before we move you. Hey. Don't go acting like you're his partner. Ryuji complained, stepping up next to Izuku. Eat. Eat. Tabe cheered, his mouth opening wide before clamping shut like a bear trap. Wait wait wait. These kids know about Eri, the blonde's eyes drifted to the bald Yakuza in panic. We can't let these brats walk out of here now. We'll have to take care of them, ho ho. So it would seem. Not only do they know about Eri, but they're also targeting the boss. The man's whole body convulsed, muscles ripping through his shirt as his head approached the ceiling. The thieves all drew their weapons when crystals sprouted from his shoulders, arms, and head. He was now close to the size of the red demon from before, but the aura he gave off was far more imposing. Sorry, brats. But you won't be leaving here alive now. You hear that, Tabe, looks like you're eating like a king tonight. The blonde cackled, eyes becoming pitch black as he stared back at the thieves. Eat. Tabe's neck, arms, and fingers stretched out like taffy, his body hunching forward the way a bipedal lizard would as his mouth tore free of the bag, revealing rows upon rows of dagger-shaped teeth. Hey, these guys aren't transforming like regular shadows, Anne mumbled, looking at Morgana. What's going on? These guys, I knew something felt off. Morgana's jaw clenched. They're not shadows. They're cognitive beings in Chisaki's heart. People strong enough to leave an impression on him and manifest in his palace as guardians. I hope you brats prepared well for this. You face the 8 bullets. Ho-Ho rumbled, taking a thunderous step toward the thieves. We'll exterminate you before you ever reach the boss. Chapter 38. Izuku gnashed his teeth as he watched the 2 monstrous Yakuza stomp their way toward him and his team, eyes dancing between both the hungry Tabe and the hulking Ho-Ho. The crystal surrounding his body likely enhanced both his offense and his defense. He spoke like the leader as well and is probably the biggest threat. We should focus him down while keeping the others at bay. Everyone, bullet hail. Izuku ordered, reaching into his jacket to draw his pistol. During what strategy meetings they had in the past weeks, they had decided on several code names for easy orders and team-up combos. So upon his word, the rest of the thieves quickly drew out their guns, ready to unload their magazines at their targets. It might not do much, but if we can get them to divide, then Izuku's thoughts were quickly shut down when he felt his pistol yanked from his hand. Wah, what the F? Ryuji's voice quickly made Izuku aware that the rest of the team had suddenly lost their long-range weapons, also followed by their close-ranged ones. His eyes widened in horror when he saw their guns fly through the air and passing by their opponents. Oi, kids shouldn't be playing with such dangerous toys, UKNOW, the blonde Yakuza, Satsuno, Izuku recalled, taunted as their guns piled into his arms before swiftly being dropped at his feet. Quite a collection you got here, too. I don't know which one to pick. What the hell was that? Some kinda quirk, Ryuji grimaced. But it's just a cognitive monster, right? As long as the owner knows how it works, then it shouldn't be any different than real life, moron. Bakugo snarled, sweat trailing down his brow. You children have rambled long enough. Prepare to meet your maker. Ho-Ho roared as he cocked his arm back, crystals doubling its size and weight as he brought it down like a hammer. The team quickly darted to the sides, dividing them as they narrowly avoided the ground-quaking swing. Eat, Tabe shrieked as he lunged at the thieves closest to him, namely Anne. Stay away, you freak. Anne screamed as she drew her mask away. Harmon materialized in front of her, barely restraining the ravenous Yakuza with its whip. Tabe snapped like a mad dog, pressing the persona back. Get off her, you psycho, bang. Just as Ryuji prepared to jump on Tabe with Captain Kidd, he stopped short when bullets sailed just a hair past him, causing him to stumble back. Now. Don't forget who has all of your sweet toys. Satsuno cackled, holding Makoto's peacekeeper and cocking the hammer back again. Always loved these old-timey revolvers. But you know. Activating his quirk, Satsuno picked up Bakugo's mini-gun and took aim from the hip. I have always wanted to try one of THESE shit. Watch out, Skull. Morgana warned, the two quickly running to avoid the bullet storm now blasting their way. We have to take out their backline, or he'll make a direct attack on the others more difficult. Yusuke suggested, wishing he had his sword in hand. Gomen. Do not forget the shield protecting the back line. Just as Gomen was about to draw its blade, Ho-Ho quickly slammed his crystal-covered arm into the persona, knocking it back with pure force. It's strong enough to fight our personas. Makoto cursed, summoning Johanna and scanning their options. TCH. We don't need weapons to take you losers down. Bakugo snarled, blasting forward and lashing out with a concussive blast against Ho-Ho. I'll blow all those crystals away. We'll see about that, brat. Ho-Ho responded by swiping with his left arm, attempting to bat Bakugo away. The explosive teen dodged with a quick blast, launching him just a short distance above the arm as it swung below him. Agilao. Anne called out, Carmen unleashing a spell of flames that seared into Tabe's bagged face. The cognitive being hissed in agony, stumbling back from her. It was clearly affected, but the Yakuza was no less deterred than before, grinding its teeth together as it stalked around. "I'm gonna take my stuff back, you dick." Ryuji snarled, his boots skidding against the ground as his knee brace charged up. With a sudden burst of speed, he darted forward at Satsuno, arm cocked back before slamming it into the Yakuza's jaw at super speed. Gah. Satsuno coughed, stumbling back from the punch before snarling. "You little brat. I'm gonna shoot you in the damn kneecaps. Fat chance, asshole." Ryuji kept his super speed up even as his knees began to overheat, getting in Satsuno's face just as he used his quirk to bring Izuku's gun to his hand. Ryuji smashed his forehead into Satsuno's, the cognition's head bucking back from the force. The gun fell to the ground as he was unable to complete the action, and Ryuji was given free rein. "Now to finish you off." Ryuji ripped off his mask, Captain Kidd materializing above him. "Eat this." Satsuno's eyes flared in fear as the persona leveled the cannon with his body before unleashing a bolt of lightning. Gaia. His body was left burned to a crisp, falling to the ground unconscious. "Satsuno." Ho-Ho called out in concern, Tabe also momentarily drawing his gaze away from Anne to look back at their comrade in trouble. Their attention was drawn away. Izuku noted, surprised by the amount of concern evident in the Yakuza for their comrade's safety. He didn't want to miss his chance, quickly drawing off his mask. "Harder." The heroic persona manifested, drawing its fist back as it ignited with pure white energy. Virginia smash. Carter threw its signature attack, Ho-Ho turning back at the last second and raising his arm in defense. Izuku's arm throbbed with pain but tightened his fist, ignoring the aching as he waited for the smoke to clear. Crystals had bursted off Ho-Ho's arm, leaving it bare as a clear bruise formed from the attack. But despite that, he held his guard up still, arm trembling. "Not bad, kid, but my crystals absorbed most of the impact," Ho-Ho declared, pushing back against Carter and quickly reforming crystals on his arm. He followed up with his other arm, slamming it into Carter's gut. The impact was reflected in Izuku, knocking the wind out of him as he strangled a cough out. "As long as we can break through, that's all we'll need." Makoto revved Johanna's engine before blazing forth, smashing the front wheel of her persona into his chest and spinning the wheel up. Gah. Ho-Ho staggered back, knocked off balance by Makoto's charge. "Time to knock you flat on your ass." Bakugo snarled as he ripped off his mask. "Blow him away, Tombstone." The smoking barrels of Tombstone's shotgun ignited with an orange energy, preparing to blast a hole into the cognitive being's stomach. But just before it could fire, Tombstone's gun was suddenly bit into, a chunk taken out by Tabi the ravenous Yakuza. "What the hell?" Bakugo's eyes flared, cocking his hand back to launch an explosion at the monster. "Tabi, look out." Ho-Ho called out, but too late as a gale of wind cut into the monster's back. "Don't forget that we're a team as well." Morgana called out, standing next to Anne. "Eat me." Tabe flailed in pain, struggling to stand after taking the direct hit. "Eat this." Harmon formed a circle of flame above, scorching Tabe and Ho-Ho as the flames enveloped them. "Defeat is all you'll be tasting today." Now for the finale. Yusuke removed his mask, Gomen once again taking shape. It raised its bladed pipe before slamming it into the ground, sending a sharp wave of energy out that cut into both Tabi and Ho-Ho. Giant slice. The attack cut into both cognitive Yakuza, black ooze spilling out in place of blood as they both fell to the ground. The thieves gathered around, Ryuji dragging Satsuno over and tossing him with the other three. "They worked pretty well as a team. But I'd say ours is better." Morgana smirked, looking at the others with a smile. "Good job, Phantom Thieves." You brats." Ho-Ho's mumbling brought their attention to the fallen Yakuza. "Perhaps you've gotten past us but don't expect the rest of the bullets to be so easy, we'll save Iri-chan no matter what." Izuku declared, brow furrowing. "Even if it means fighting the rest of the precepts." HMPH. Ho-Ho scoffed, laying his head back down as the three began to dissipate into black ooze. "You have a strong resolve, boy. You'll need it for what's to come." The three cognitions finally faded into thin air, allowing the thieves to relax their shoulders now that the coast was clear. "That was so weird. I didn't think non-shadows like that would be so tough," Anne mumbled, stretching out her back. "It's like I said. If they have a big enough impression on the palace ruler, anything's possible. As we all just saw." Morgana sighed, scratching the back of his head. "Still, that was more than I was expecting, too. And from the sound of it, the rest of these 8 precepts or bullets or whatever they're called are going to be in here too. Like it matters. If they aren't even the shadows of their real-world counterparts, then we can murder them without hesitation." Bakugo spat, walking past the others and to the spot the 3 bullets had faded from. "This what we need." He tossed something toward Izuku, the leader catching it before it could smack him in the face. Izuku took a good look, seeing a floor officer Ho-Ho label on the front next to a picture and barcode. "Yeah, I think this is it. I guess we needed to fight them regardless. Oh, sweet." Sometimes jumping into traps pays off. Ryuji grinned, giving a thumbs up. Let's get going. Wait. Why don't we take a look at this clean room while we're here? Makoto suggested, bringing the thieves' attention to her. She stared at the solid steel door, grasping the tip of her chin. It might give us some valuable insight on our target. Isn't it just a waste of time? Bakugo argued, eyes glaring at the door. We should just keep barreling through this place. I agree with Queen. Izuku spoke this time, walking up next to her. We still don't know a lot about who we're taking down. Any intel we can gather would be valuable. They're right. We still have no idea what's to come. Besides, it may give us access to a map of the lower floor, if we're lucky. Morgana added, causing Bakugo to click his tongue. Whatever. Let's get it over with then. Bakugo walked up to the door and held his hand up, ready to blow it down. Wait. We don't need to blow everything up. That's why we have the key card. Anne snapped, causing Bakugo to click his tongue. Hurry up then. Oh, relax. Makoto sighed, walking past him and using the key card to open the door. Access denied. Only for the door to remain shut. Wait, what? Why ain't it opening? Ryuji was the first to ask. Odd. You would think that at least the floor officers would have access to this clean room. Yusuke held his elbow up as he stroked his chin. I guess, even with as much trust as they had given to them, they were still kept at a certain distance. Morgana surmised, tapping his foot. Have any ideas for how to proceed, hero? Well, Izuku spared a look at Bakugo, biting his bottom lip before sighing. If you can open it, Nitro, then let's do it. Wait, we're really gonna let him? Ryuji blurted in shock. Hell yeah, out of the way losers. I'll blast that thing away. Bakugo grinned ear to ear as he stomped back to the head of the group. Seeing that there was no stopping it now, everyone quickly moved away from the door, watching as Bakugo released a powerful concussive blast that quickly dispatched the door, sending it flying inside. Well, we should definitely hurry now. Who knows who heard that? Anne sighed, massaging the bridge of her nose. Please. If they didn't come running when we were fighting, they ain't coming now. Bakugo scoffed, walking inside. There's some logic to that. I suppose. Makoto sighed, walking in after him along with the others soon following. What they were greeted with was something out of a film. A room of pure white. The walls, the desks, the chairs, everything looked pristine. It was in complete contrast to the rustic aesthetic of the outside and more in line with the laboratory they had named when searching for the location on the nav. Not really much in here, Ryuji pointed out, scratching his head. Thought there'd be more to a place cut off like this. Let's see what's on his desk. Morgana hopped on top of it, pushing some papers across for the others to look at. Izuku joined him, pulling open the drawers and searching their contents. He found a handheld tape recorder, cocking a brow as he pulled it out. Score. Looks like we've got our map of the second floor. Morgana announced before Izuku could speak, drawing his attention to the cat. Everyone gathered around to take a look. What the F? The second floor's way bigger. Ryuji spat in awe. Indeed, it looked massive in comparison to the first map when compared to the map of the first floor. Like the thieves had barely scratched the surface of this palace. Looks like we were right to assume this was only the beginning. I don't see anything about the treasure's location on here either, said Morgana, paws crossed over his chest. If it's not on the map, then that might mean another floor as well. Makoto pointed out. Damn, just how big is this place? Ryuji cursed in frustration. No use complaining about it. We did prepare for a long day, after all. Anne sighed, clearly no more thrilled about the development either. What is it you're holding, hero? Yusuke asked, drawing eyes to their leader. Oh, a recorder I think. Not sure what's on it, but I thought it might be worth listening to. Izuku held it out to show the others. Might as well give it a listen. Go ahead and play it, hero. Morgana said. Izuku gave a brisk nod, pressing play. Ichisaki's log, March 28, year 20XX. Ever since taking over as leader of the 8 precepts, I've been forced to deal with a good number of the old guard. It's been nauseating. Izuku's eyes flared in surprise, looking at the others and seeing a similar reaction. Every day I come to the upper floor is a day I dread. Ho-Ho does a better job dealing with the rank and file better than most, but I can't always avoid going out. I have to make some sort of appearance, or else they'll begin to believe that they're no longer being cared for. As much as I'd like to be rid of them all, they still fulfill certain uses. Such as being human shields, scapegoats and cannon fodder in the battles surely to come. What the hell? He doesn't even care about his own guys. Izuku paused the recording as Ryuji began to rant, brow furrowing in frustration. I get that they're criminals, but the movies made it sound like Yakuza had some kind of code. Stuff like loyalty and brotherhood or some shit. That may just be the romanticized ideals that television has tried to sell to people, but even this is a little more than I was expecting. Makoto bit the inside of her cheek. Certainly not what like a dragon tries to sell. Hey, we don't have time to blabber. Either finish the recording or let's go. Bakugo told them, silencing the others. Izuku quickly resumed. Every day I see the garbage gather as my underlings. I feel the urge to tighten my mask. I can't stomach be forced to breathe even a little of the same air as those pissants. They're a constant reminder of a long-lost age of Yakuza. Like relics of a museum built to remind others of what failures they were. An age filled with honorable fools unwilling to bend their code and stand up to the heroes. Unwilling to do what's necessary to survive. It falls upon me to bring us back from the brink. And unlike those worthless dregs, I'll do whatever it takes to bring us back to glory. The tape ended, a short silence following after it. Izuku pursed his lips, taking out the tape inside. I think that's all. There's no other tapes, either. Good. Then let's hurry up and get to the second floor already. Bakugo huffed, turning around and first to leave. Talk about callous, though. You'd think he'd care more about his guys, at least. Ryuji said as they trailed after Bakugo. But I guess I shouldn't be too surprised. It makes sense to me. Izuku's grave tone drew the eyes of his team, his brow furrowed in frustration. If he was willing to hurt Yuri-chan, his own daughter, then he's even less likely to care for his underlings. I hadn't thought about it that way. Anne rubbed her arm, somewhat uncomfortable at the implication. But that's why we're here, at least. We'll get Yuri away from that monster as soon as possible. Don't worry, hero. Right. Izuku nodded, electing to believe his teammates' reassurance. It wasn't long until they reached the elevators, dispatching of the couple of fodder shadows in their path with little trouble. Izuku quickly scanned the badge in their possession and thankfully got a better result than with the clean room, the elevator doors sliding open for them. Remember, everyone. Things won't be as straightforward from here. Morgana reminded them once they all stepped onto the elevator. Just how crazy can it get? Bakugo cocked a brow, eyes narrowed. Imagine an entire school being turned into an actual castle. Go from there. Anne said. Or a hut being turned into a grotesque museum. Yusuke added. The hell? Bakugo spat, not entirely getting the picture. You'll understand soon enough. Makoto assured, not that it was any less to the explosive teen's irritation. It was a surprisingly long trip down, taking a little over 2 minutes for what felt like a speedy elevator to finally come to a stop. The doors opened, revealing a small white room that looked like a trailer or production office of some kind. Desks with standing monitors were lined up in a neat row beneath windows along the wall opposite them. On either side of them were 2 large sealed doors, much like the ones barring their entry to Chisaki's clean room. Maybe not that soon. This is a pretty modest start to Makoto began before her eyes lit up, walking toward the windows. Everyone followed close, their reactions mirroring hers as they gazed out the window. What laid before them was an industrial chemical plant. Vats filled with glowing green and sickly white liquids, frothed as they were stirred by machines. Production lines below them being fed the unknown compounds. Shadows dressed in hazmat suits walking back and forth along the conveyor belts, while ones dressed in doctor's coats stood over the vats in the upper walkways. Against the walls were supported buildings that wrapped around the lab below, connecting on both sides to the building the thieves stood in. Well, starting to get it now? Makoto asked, looking at Bakugo. Yeah, he muttered as he stared wide-eyed at the sheer size of the palace before him. So where are we going from here? Ryuji asked, looking at the doors on both sides, scratching his head. The treasure ain't on this floor, right? From what the map showed, no. Izuku pulled out the map, opening it again. I think we'll have to find the officers on this floor before proceeding. They might have the map for any further floors. That means more of those cognitive beings to deal with. Anne sounded anxious, rubbing her arm in worry. They're not even a problem. If they're anything like the first guys, we'll blow them away all the same. Bakugo scoffed, you shouldn't be so quick to dismiss them. The deeper we go into the palace, the stronger our opponents become. The same will likely be the case for the cognitive beings. Morgana scolded. Good. It'd be pointless if we kept fighting the same weaklings over and over again. How the hell would we even get any stronger? Bakugo brushed it off still. But that doesn't mean we're not gonna thrash them. So long as you all can keep up. Don't think you can leave us all behind that easy. We're the ones who got more experience with this stuff. Ryuji huffed, crossing his arms over his chest. Alright, enough. Let's focus on the matter at hand. Makoto pointed a finger at Bakugo, making him click his tongue. First. Let's see what the elevator needs. My guess is at least one of the officers' badges from this floor. Allow me. Yusuke walked over to the elevator panel, pressing the down button. Laboratory officers' badges required. As expected, Izuku sighed, holding his chin. And from the sound of it, we'll need multiple. We'll have to scour the floor and look for each of them. Then let's split up. Bakugo said, jerking a thumb at the door behind him. I'll go look for one of the badges through this door, you losers go the other way. What? No way. We don't split the team up. Morgana shook his head. We especially wouldn't send you on your own. That's far too dangerous. Why not? Even if we split the team up, we'd be fine. Bakugo argued, arms crossed over his chest. We'll cover more ground and make this faster. We're not in so much of a rush that we want to risk anyone being seriously hurt or worse because we lack numbers. Izuku answered, stepping up. If we had 8 members or more, it might be feasible. But right now, we only have 7, meaning one team would be short on manpower. It's too dangerous, especially when we don't even know the full layout of this place. Don't underestimate me. I'm strong enough to cover up for 2. Bakugo argued, confidently jerking a thumb at his chest. I'll find that damn key card in no time. We're not splitting up. You still don't know everything there is to this palace. It could be way worse than what we saw up top. Anne stamped her foot in frustration. Split up. Sounds like a great idea to me. The thieves tensed, heads on a swivel as an unfamiliar voice echoed around them. There. Morgana pointed toward the ceiling just above the monitors. What stared back at the group was nothing short of something out of a horror flick. An empty-eyed bone-white plague mask attached to a black cloth body, the bottom fused to the ceiling. We thought there we heard some odd noises coming from the first floor. Looks like you made it past the officers on that floor somehow and made it down here. The strange creature mused, its beaked face trailing across the thieves. You all aren't welcome in the lab. But hey, since you've made it this far, why not take a tour? Although the room began to rumble, the thieves looking around in alert. Before they knew it, the ceiling twisted like Play-Doh. A white wall descended like a falling anvil in a cartoon. The thieves each dove out of the way as it split the room in half. Izuku, Morgana and Makoto stood on one side while the rest on the other. The wall then split in two, curling like a wave and pushing against each group. Skull. Everyone. Izuku called out, but didn't act fast enough to stop the wall from pushing him and the 2 companions with him out of the room. Bakugo's group was met with the same result, each side shoved from the room before the steel doors shut on them, cutting off their escape. Bastard. Come out and fight us. Bakugo snarled, quickly back on his feet as he launched an explosion at the wall barring their way. His eyes bulged in shock, realizing that the door in their way this time wasn't so easily destroyed. Don't worry, brat. You and the others will get what's coming to you, the voice of the strange Yakuza creature echoed through speakers hanging on the wall. But from here on, your tours will have to be taken separately. Feel free to look around and meet some of the staff. Trust me, they're itching to meet you. Bastard. Give us back our friends. Ryuji kicked the wall in frustration. It seems futile. If Nitro's explosion wasn't enough to dent it, I doubt we can do much else to destroy it. Yusuke pointed out, holding the tip of his chin. Looks like we only have one way to open it. Anne pointed to the console against the wall, a keycard scanner on it. Damn it. That jerk really got us. Ryuji cursed, scratching his head furiously. What are we gonna do now? You need Deku to hold your hand that much? The 3 turned to look at Bakugo, the explosive teen's eyes narrowed. It should be obvious what we're gonna do. We're getting that key card. The others looked at one another, clearly hesitant. Well, guess we really don't got a choice. Ryuji admitted, frowning. We are short on options. Trying to find another way around would likely waste time as well as energy. Yusuke admitted with a sigh. Our best course of action is to retrieve the key card. Well, I guess as long as we're all on board, then I can't complain. Anne nodded before shifting a small glare Bakugo's way. But don't think that just because Hero and Queen aren't here that you're suddenly the leader. We're a team, so we work together as one, got it? TCH, whatever. As long as you don't get in my way, I couldn't care less. Bakugo huffed, turning his back to them as he started to walk down the white-walled hallway. We're off to a great start, Ryuji grunted in irritation, looking at the others. Let's just do our best to make sure he doesn't get himself killed. Must be nice, Skull. Not being the one who has to be looked after for once. Anne teased, causing Ryuji to blanch. Kidding. But seriously, I do wonder how things will go without the others to keep him in line, yeah. Guess we're about to find out. Ryuji let out a deep sigh, walking after Bakugo with Anne and Yusuke falling in line next to him. We must all do our best to work with him. As well as show him that we are not his lessers. Yusuke declared, eyes narrowing behind his mask. Izuku's lips thinned into a line as his hand brushed over the steel door. His chest tightened as he felt concern fill him. Just the 3 of us, huh? Morgana mumbled behind him, the concern clear in his voice. Whatever that thing was, it got us good. We let our guard down. We might not have been near ordinary shadows, but we're still dealing with the cognitive beings lurking around. Izuku turned around to look at Makoto, her eyes furrowed behind her steel mask. I hope everyone's alright. I'm sure they're in the same position we are, but I'm still worried. Izuku admitted, looking back at the door. Haken was willing to listen to us, but I don't know how he's going to be with the others. Well, knowing Skull, they're definitely going to butt heads a bit. I just hope Panther and Fox are able to keep them in line somehow. Morgana sighed next to him, the three forming a small triangle. Well, nothing we can do but try and find the officers on this side of the floor. It looked pretty straightforward, but we'll have quite a bit of ground to cover. Yeah. We'll follow the production line down to the office. The others saw the map, so they should be able to navigate their side. Izuku activated his third eye, scanning the area to see if there were any secrets hidden in plain sight that might allow them back in the room. To his dismay, there was nothing. Damn it, let's do our best to trust that they'll be okay. Nitro might make some noise, but he's not going to do anything that will compromise the team. He knows he'd never hear the end of it from us. Makoto's words were somewhat reassuring for Izuku. Perhaps relying on Bakugo's stubbornness was their best and only option of hope. Well, since it's just the three of us, I think it's best to avoid unnecessary conflict. We're going to have to take on at least one member of these 8 bullets soon enough, and who knows what they've got waiting for us. Morgana advised, skipping down the white hall and peering down it to get an idea of their path. It's clear for now. There's a safe room right ahead too. Maybe we should save it on the nav in case we need to come back. Right. Let's go. Izuku tried to wipe the concern from his voice, not wanting to overlook the danger that they were soon to meet themselves. But it was hard to shake the worry of just how the others would do with Bakugo alone. Here's your strategy. Follow my lead and let me take care of it. God, I'm already getting annoyed. Would we have to get stuck with him? Ryuji once again found himself questioning Izuku's decision to bring Bakugo along. Sure, both his quirk and persona were undeniably powerful. Ryuji didn't have to be a genius to see that much. But unlike the others, he was clearly incapable of basic teamwork. Or, at the very least, he made it seem like a chore. If you want to take the lead, fine. But make sure you don't get in the way when we're going in for assists. Ryuji snapped back as they followed close after their newest teammate. We all make sure to get a hit in so we can figure out a Shadow's weak spot. Hero isn't here to do it as quickly, so we all must contribute to this. Yusuke added. Between the 4 of us, we should at least be able to check a good number of them on our own. And make sure you get out of the way for any team combos. Anne spoke next to him, Ryuji able to tell she was somewhat close to as fed up as he was. Team combos. Bakugo looked back, an eyebrow cocked. Yes. With Hero's help, we developed combination attacks that complement one another quite well. Typically he would give the call sign, and we would use our moves in tangent, but we will have to give the calcins ourselves. Yusuke explained. The explosive blonde had a minor bit of intrigue in his gaze before he looked back forward. Tell me the call signs and I'll call them out. Ryuji blinked, for the first time surprised to hear something that sounded like actual cooperation from him. I mean, are you actually gonna use them? I'm asking, aren't I? Bakugo barked back, sounding frustrated by the mere idea. Well, I guess that's better than nothing. Ryuji had to take what he could get from their new teammate, and this was somewhere to start. Well, for Panther and mine's combo, it's Rolling Thunder. She basically makes flame wheels that I charge up with my Zeo stuff. I have a physical power combo with Skull called Blunt Blade. He positions himself behind an enemy and hits them with his persona's physical attack to launch them in my direction, and I use Gomen to do the same and hopefully finish it off. Yusuke took his turn explaining their move. Fox and I have a combo called Burning Brush. I trap the enemies in a group fire spell, and he cuts through them all while they're dealing with the flames. Anne took her turn to give her combo explanation. Bakugo stared back at them, eyes narrowed as if scrutinizing them. Those names suck. Like you could have come up with something better. Ryuji scoffed. We already know what kinda names you think up. Whenever I get a combo name, it'll blow all of yours out the water. Bakugo argued, turning his back to them again. Whatever. We'll save combo attacks for when we need them. Weakness check comes first. Something we should keep in mind is that it is only the 4 of us as well. We should avoid unnecessary engagement if possible. Yusuke reminded them all. That means we need to approach with stealth. You hear that, Nitro? Stealth. Meaning we have to be quiet. Anne said like she was talking to a child. Don't patronize me. I know what it means. Bakugo snapped back, grinding his teeth. I'll show you the definition of stealth, damn it. I doubt that, Ryuji mumbled under his breath. The 4 soon entered into a new area, a glass door blocking their way before lights blared at each corner of the door. Glass doors suddenly shut them in from behind, causing Ryuji to twist in surprise. Now sanitizing. Please stand by. Hold your breath. Who knows what it actually is? Bakugo advised before quickly clasping his nose and mouth shut. Ryuji, nor the others, could argue that point and mimicked his actions. The 4 were surrounded by a cleansing mist, nothing potentially damaging as far as any of them could tell. A small white light scanned over them before the red siren lights blinked green and the glass doors in front slid open. Sanitation complete. The four didn't wait for further confirmation, entering the next area before taking a moment to take in their surroundings. While the overview of the laboratory from the office had given them a general idea of the landscape, it was only now that Ryuji fully understood the scope of the floor. The vats of chemicals they had seen from above now looked massive as they hung overhead. The conveyor belt that passed under it stopped in a repetitive cycle, large glass vials being fed the chemicals little by little before moving to the next vat. The more alarming sight though was the number of shadows that moved along the conveyor belt, dressed in lab coats and jotting something down on clipboards in their hands. This way. Ryuji snapped his head to Bakugo, the explosive teen already on the move. Hey, wait damn it. He cursed under his breath, quickly jogging after Ann and Yusu close at his sides. For a moment Ryuji thought Bakugo was heading toward one of the shadows along the conveyor belt, but he was quick to hop behind one of the connectors on the ground, taking cover and peering around the corner. TCH. We'll have to move fast when their backs are turned or else the entire room will be all over us. Bakugo cursed, his irritation evident. Whoa, you're actually trying to get along. I'm impressed. Ryuji thought Ann sounded genuine when she said that, almost cracking a laugh if it weren't for the shadows still close by. Shut up. I told you I'd make this look easy. Bakugo, to his credit, answered with a hushed shout instead of his usual bluster. He focused back forward, watching the shadows and their movements. We go when I say. Don't fall behind. They watched as the shadows began to move distractedly to the next vat of the conveyor belt and Bakugo quickly gave the order. Let's go. Ryuji still felt certain ways about Bakugo taking the lead, but could at least appreciate that he wasn't just running off without them. Perhaps he had set the bar a little low, but considering first impressions of him, it was fair to do. They moved together, quick and light on their feet. Ryuji and the others had become experts at lightening their footfalls after spending so much time in different palaces. But Bakugo seemed to pick up the skill in no time at all. Izuku had told them that the explosive blonde could master anything he put effort into, but it was somewhat irritating to see how natural he made it look. Seriously, how's an obnoxious guy like this picking things up so fast? They continued to follow Bakugo from machine to machine, able to stay hidden from sight. At the end of the factory line opposite of their entrance, there was a big silver door that led into the next section, a sign hanging above it, saying testing area. The conveyor belt connected to the wall as well, carrying the chemicals further in. The map said it's a straight line throughout, so we have one or two more production areas to go through before we get to the end. There's a lot of empty space between here and the doors, though. Ann pointed out, looking around at the distracted shadows not so far behind them. Will we be able to make that distance without them noticing? Hey, fake blondie. Ryuji grimaced in irritation. It's Skull, man. Skull, whatever. Bakugo huffed. Cause a distraction and draw him away. What? Then what am I supposed to do to get away? Ryuji asked in irritation. You've got super speed, don't you? Go to the other end of the room, make some noise, then beeline it toward cover before they see you. Bakugo pointed to one of the corners of the room where a tall vat stood off to the side. Knock over one of those machines or whatever is big enough to drag their attention away. Ryuji opened his mouth to argue, but found himself struggling to find a good reason as to why. I guess that's not a bad idea. Wait, but what if they see him? Ann asked in concern, looking at Ryuji as her brow furrowed. Are you planning to leave him? If they see him, we fight. Bakugo bluntly put it, eyes narrowing at Ryuji. Don't mess up if you want to save it for the officers. Yeah, Ryuji huffed, turning to see just how distracted the shadows at present were. Hey. He stopped when he felt a hand grasp his wrist, looking back to see Ann frowning. Just be careful, Kay. Don't goof around. Ryuji cocked an eyebrow, feeling a minor heat rise up in his face as he suddenly felt aware of the gentle gloved hand holding his wrist with such care. Why yeah. No sweat. Come on, Panther. Who's the better at making noise than I am? I'd argue with Nitro at this point, but I guess you're right. Ann smiled, nodding as she slowly released his arm. Do your best. Of course. Gotta show the new guy how it's done, after all. Guess there's no backing out after that. What was it just now though? Ryuji tried to focus on the task at hand, getting down into a sprinter's stance and aiming for the very edge of the area. He waited several moments, watching to make sure the shadows were focused on their tasks. Their heads turned to their clipboards and Ryuji took it as his opportune moment. His leg charged up and in a flash, he was across the room, his shoes squeaking against the floor as he came to a quick stop. He jumped behind the machine before peeking his head out, making sure none of the shadows had seen him. To his relief, they were still working away. Coast is clear for now. Okay. Ryuji scanned the area for his next hiding spot. A collection of machines sat toward the middle of the room that would serve best as his cover, giving him some comfort. Time to make some noise. And a 1-2 knot. Bothering to be picky, Ryuji grunted as he pushed over the machine that was once his cover, metal creaking as it tilted over before crashing with a surprisingly loud thud and the crash of shattering glass. Ryuji didn't wait to check if the shadows noticed, speeding his way over to his hiding spot before he could be noticed, hopefully. Hey, what was that noise? What happened to the mixer? The shadows frenzied as they scurried over to check on Ryuji's handiwork. He grinned in triumph as the entire room seemed to take the bait, turning back to the others and dashing over in a flash. Good job, Skull. Anne smiled, raising a hand and high-fiving him. You proved to be the most astute at causing clamor once again. Yusu chuckled his compliment as well. Hell yeah. Now let's get going. Ryuji turned to Bakugo, the scowling teen huffing as he took the lead again. Not bad, I guess. Huh? Did you just compliment me? Ryuji felt like he'd just gotten whiplash when he heard that. I said not bad. I didn't say it was good. Bakugo barked, almost sounding embarrassed. Now shut your traps and let's go before they notice us. It took Ryuji a moment to process, sharing a small look with the others. Anne only shrugged while Yusu tapped his chin in wonder. Guess that was something. The three didn't linger on the moment too long, quickly catching up to Bakugo and going through to the next area. The previous area had been more open, but this one seemed to be compacted a bit, steel walls and roof sealing off the area from top to bottom. To their left were tall, steel boxes from the look of them, caged off at the front with white lights shining from within. To their right was again the conveyor belt. The vials of liquid were being stamped down by a press, combining them into a single compact syringe, somehow. An obvious trick of the palace cognition, of course. What's going on with AAAGH? Ryuji nearly jumped out of his skin, he and the others turning their heads to the cage boxes to their left. The shadow dressed as a doctor stood in front of it like the ones by the conveyor belt, but what they saw inside was a disturbing sight. A pale man gripped the steel bars separating him from the shadow. Spikes protruded from his face, and he violently thrashed back and forth in the cage. What the hell are they doing to him? Ryuji mumbled in shock. It's a cognition, right? What's it matter? Bakugo asked, brow cocked in wonder. It might be good for us to learn. Portions of the palace can reflect something that has taken place in the real world as well. Yusu informed him, causing Bakugo's eyes to flare in surprise. Let's get closer, then. Bakugo surprisingly agreed, motioning for them to follow as he silently moved toward one of the nearby support beams. They got as close as they could, still out of sight from the shadow as it watched a convulsing man in front of them. That was a strong response to the trigger. It seems that the dosage was either too much or not pure enough. The shadow surmised aloud, jotting notes down on his clipboard. Still, results are satisfactory. This strand is cheaper and quicker to create. As long as it does as advertised, customers will still purchase trigger. Strand approved. Approved, but look at a man mumbled next to Ryuji, the faux blonde grimly nodding his agreement. The test subject didn't just look like some hopped-up druggie, he looked like he could barely stand. Barely even process a thought just from the look of him. So they're selling trigger on top of those quick-cursing bullets, huh? Looks like they're using live subjects to test its strength, too. Bakugo surmised, eyes narrowed in a clear show of disgust. These guys are trashier than we thought. I'm not quite so familiar with trigger. How does it work? Yusu asked, a look of concern on his face. It's basically a super drug that amps up quirks. It's super addictive and people who take it have some nasty after effects. Being part of a sports club, Ryuji and his team had been drilled on the dangers of drugs. Trigger was on top of the list to be mentioned as well. The bullets are definitely more important as a resource than the drug. They're probably using it to keep cash coming. Bakugo hissed, looking away from the cage. Let's go. This is just pissing me off. That's something we agree on. Ryuji didn't voice it but conceded to Bakugo's suggestion. Ryuji looked back at the cognition as it made noise, eyes bulging when he realized it was looking directly at them. There, who's there? Save me. What? And to his chagrin, the shadow looked back at them, causing the team to tense up as they were suddenly spotted by the enemy. Hey. Intruders. You didn't tell me the cognitions could alert them. Bakugo snapped, drawing the axes from his waist. It usually doesn't happen like that. Ryuji admitted. It doesn't matter now. We'll have to fight. Yusu placed his hand on the hilt of his katana as three of the doctor shadows surrounded them. Their bodies fell apart and they transformed, this time taking shape as 5 enemies, 3 fairies of the same appearance, and 2 maroon humanoids dual-wielding swords as they hovered above. Let's bust through 'em, then. Bakugo grinned, propelling himself forward with an explosion and making the first move. Wait, Nitro. We're supposed to. Anne clicked her tongue in frustration as Bakugo lashed out with his dual-wielded tomahawks at one of the fairies. But his attack was swiftly blocked by one of the much larger maroon shadow's blades, its black eyes staring into his. You brats came to the wrong place. You're gonna become our next test subjects. Trash like you couldn't lick our boots if you wanted to. Bakugo's heckling was ever so subtle, blasting the front of the blades to propel himself higher in the air, free hand drawing away his mask. Tombstone. The smoking gun of his persona was the first thing to materialize, an azure light filling the barrels. Fire. But the pull of its trigger, the triple barrels erupted, enveloping the shadows in its blast. Ah! The pixies flew backward, crashing into the ground from the blast. The dual-wielding shadows, however, remained afloat. Hey. Finish those ones off. Bakugo called back to the others, having Tombstone block a slash from the other shadow. I'll handle these two. Handle this, brat. Ryuji felt his face drain of color when the other shadow began to spin around, its blades filling with energy. That idiot. He's gonna get hit. Ryuji found his legs carrying him forward, hand reaching up and drawing away his mask. I'll help Nitro. Finish the other ones off. Right. Ann and Yusuke didn't waste time arguing, running forward alongside him. Ryuji had to act quickly, as Bakugo visibly showed frustration as he could tell that he would be incapable of stopping the oncoming attack. He activated his super speed, but knew his knees weren't fully charged. Just a bit closer and I'll be good. Ryuji expended the little bit of stored electricity he had and was thankful to see he was just within the needed distance to act yes. Captain Kid. His persona held up its arms to guard, eating the brunt of the physical wave attack for Bakugo. Ryuji winced in pain, but the general damage reflected on him wasn't anything special. Hey. You didn't have to do that. Bakugo launched a concussive blast in the face of the shadow that attacked Ryuji, dropping to the ground just a few feet in front of him. You were gonna eat that attack. Chill. Ryuji barked back, raising his bat. They're still coming either way. I know. Ryuji decided to just save their argument for after, the two shadows now looming just above them with their swords raised. But before they could lunge forward with their blades, the shadows cried out in agony as fire suddenly scorched their backs. Allow me to demonstrate. Ryuji grinned as Yusuke sailed between the shadows, blade flashing as he drew it in a quick motion before quickly sheathing it again. He landed between Bakugo and Ryuji, a satisfying clink echoing as he sheathed his blade completely, and the shadows spewed black ooze like fountains. Flaming brush. Ryuji relaxed as the shadows began to dissipate into the air, slinging his bat onto his back. Good one. He said, bumping arms with Yusuke. But of course. We would not expect you both to deal with them alone. I had it handled. Bakugo huffed through gritted teeth, putting his tomahawks back on his belt. Maybe, but you could have gotten hurt in the process. Anne called out as she approached, arms crossing as she regarded Bakugo. Don't get me wrong, you started strong and made them more vulnerable, but then what's the issue? The issue's that you coulda done it without taking such a huge risk. Ryuji took over this time. We ain't got the full team here, so we gotta be more careful when going up against groups of shadows like that. We did just fine. Bakugo huffed, hands resting on his hips. What we're saying is that it could have been better. Ryuji nodded in agreement when Anne spoke up. You would have taken a direct hit if it wasn't for Skull. Bakugo clicked his tongue, eyes trailing to the side. I would have been fine. Panther can heal you, sure, but we're trying to conserve as much energy as we can here. Ryuji said, at least thankful that Bakugo wasn't outright denying their word so far. He was, albeit reluctantly, listening. Indeed. Our efficiency in dealing with shadows rises if we clearly communicate with one another. While we act somewhat freely during battle, we still have to try and keep each other in mind in case we fall into dire straits. This is even more true now that we're lacking our entire team. Yusuke tried to sell the point completely now. Bakugo ground his teeth together in frustration, but instead of blowing his top, he just let out an annoyed huff. Alright. I get it. He stomped ahead of them, still stiff but somewhat less than before. Quit wasting time already. Ryuji cocked a brow, looking at the others. That didn't go as bad as I expected. Yeah, maybe he is trying. Anne suggested hopefully. We'll see in the coming battles if our words truly sink in. Yusuke said, not sounding too hopeful. Not that Ryuji or Anne could blame him. Hey, let's climb the cages. Bakugo told them, pointing at the steel box where the test subjects were being held. That way another one of these things don't expose us again. Not the worst idea. You're really picking up on the stealth thing, new guy. Ryuji teased, causing Bakugo to scoff and turn to move the cages. Here. The patient that had exposed them was still crying and pointing at them, as if there were shadows still around to pursue the group. Take them, not me them. Man. What sick things are these bastards doing to people? That guy looks like Shibu Ma. Ryuji and the others felt their jaws drop as Bakugo blasted the drained man with a quick explosion from his palm without even a second glance, still walking toward the side of the box. Shut your mouth already. Dude, Ryuji said. He and the others looked at him in disappointment. Don't give me that look. They're just cognitions, right? Even if it reflects something in the real world, they're not anyone's shadow. Bakugo barked in irritation before the others could scold him. If we let this guy be, we'd have every shadow with a brain cell on top of us right now. Well, he's not wrong, I suppose. It was making quite a bit of noise that could alert more shadows. Yusuke seemed to agree, despite the minor bit of judgment in his eyes. Still, it does feel there seemed to be a long row of them for testing. Shadows started to reform and continue their rounds like nothing had happened to the earlier soldiers. Thankfully, any noise they made while moving along the top of the cages was smothered by the Cognition's agonizing screams. It was sickening to listen to, but it wouldn't be the first time Ryuji heard that kind of suffering in a palace. As they reached the end of the containment cells, the four hopped down and hid behind several machines, staying out of sight from the newly resurfaced shadows in the area. Luckily for them, the next room had plenty of obstructions along the way for them to use as cover. They were able to move onto the sockled shipping area with ease. The officer's room should be just up ahead, right? Ryuji asked as he tried to recall the map. There wasn't much room left on the map to indicate that there'd be much more, said Yusuke, holding his chin as he looked around. To their right, where the conveyor belt passed through the wall like before, was a large machine that packaged the trigger up in boxes in an instant. The boxes were then being loaded up into a shaft where it would carry the drugs up to the top. As for the rest of the area, it was surprisingly empty. Empty crates sat off to the side with the stairs at the back that led up to an office that overlooked the entire area. It was clear that there was nowhere else to go from here on. You think they can see us from up there? Anne asked, feeling a little too exposed with them out in the open like this. Considering that thing from earlier said they'd be told, it probably doesn't matter. Bakugo scoffed, eyes narrowing at the office. Let's go and get that key card. Well. Looks like you brats made it here real quick. The same voice from earlier echoed over an intercom, the four immediately taking tense stances. I guess you really can't delegate tasks to grunts too often. You know what they say, you want something done right, you make me do it instead. A new voice echoed from the office. And much to their chagrin, a large shadow loomed overhead. The steel steps clanked as something huge charged up them. The large shadow shifted as the figure above jumped over the railings, landing with a thunderous crash on the ground. What the hell? Ryuji blurted out, gripping his bat as their latest opponent slowly rose in height. Unlike the previous bullets who had started out at a normal height, this one seemed naturally gigantic. He was at least 8 feet tall with muscles to rival All Might's. His arms were unnaturally long, his iron-gloved hands, each thicker than his own head, reaching the floor in front of him even as he stood at full height. His face was hidden behind another plague doctor's that covered his comparatively tiny head, making it resemble an anteater's. It's too early for kids like you to be playing around in a Yakuza base. The monster of a man rumbled. At his feet were, strangely enough, regular-looking cognitive Yakuza grunts, gathering in front of him in protection. Pity. If you've made it this far, then that means there's no leaving for you. We'll have to feed you to the fishes. If anything's left of you when we're done. That's right. We could always use more test subjects, but I think it's better safe than sorry with you lot. The same irritating voice echoed over the intercom again. Just above the massive Yakuza, the small form of the beaked monstrosity that separated them stretched out from the metal. Maybe that's a good thing, though. As annoying as kids are, I'd much rather kill you than put you through that hell. Consider it a kindness on our part. Kindness my ass. We know how you assholes treat little girls. Ryuji snapped, stomping his foot on the ground. We're gonna take your key cards and save Eri. You bastards wanna show us kindness? How about you kindly drop dead? Bakugo snarled with a dark grin as he drew out his minigun, preparing to fire. Huh. They know about Eri. The hulking one's lensed eyes flared. Guess we'll have to keep him alive. Well, at least one of them, said the disembodied mask said, its head scanning across the group. We need to find out what they know and who sent them. Guess we'll leave the one in red alive, then. The hulking one rumbled with a low, suggestive laughter. I'd hate to hurt a lady with such a body like yours, anyway. You're not taking anyone, asshole. All you'll be taking is this ass kicking. Ryuji stepped in front of Anne defensively, feeling his temper flare up at the way they addressed Anne. Whoa ho, Casanova. No need to get so protective of your lady. You'll be worrying more about yourself in just a sec. That's right. Because now you're messing with the big boys. Hope you said your prayers and goodbyes. The hulking Yakuza roughly grabbed the grunts in front of them, causing them to panic as he started to take a long inhale. The team widened their eyes as visible streams of energy were drawn out from the grunts and were absorbed into the face of his mask. His body suddenly tripled in size, causing the thieves to take a step back in horror. You ain't dealing with wimpy grunts anymore, brats. I'm Rakia Katsukum, and you can call me MIMIC. The mask fell onto Rakia's shoulder guards, merging with them so that its mask was facing them from his shoulder. And we're the 8 bullets. Chapter 39. Izuku peered around the corner of the conveyor belt, watching the shadows intently work on the machines. Rows of bullets tipped with needles cascaded from the mouth of the belt, clearly representing the quirk-cursing bullets. But Izuku ignored them, eyes were instead honed on the shadows, putting them together and transporting them away. They all worked with robotic regularity, following the same paths and looking in the same places when they weren't hunched over the conveyor belt. "Okay, I think I have the timing." Izuku whispered back to Makoto and Morgana. "We'll go on 3. That's no issue for the 3 of us." Morgana spoke confidently. "On your mark, hero." Makoto nodded. Their trek through the second floor of Chisaki's palace had been relatively quiet. Their small group avoided as much conflict as possible, only picking a fight with a decently strong bunch of shadows standing guard at the door of this room. Despite lacking their usual numbers, the 3 handled the encounter swiftly, Izuku swapping between his personas as quickly as possible to probe the shadows' weaknesses. While they suffered no real damage, they felt their lack of manpower with that encounter. "Alright, 1, 2, 3. Izuku led the 3 with a phantom dash, his footfall quiet as he and his friends passed by the shadows with relative ease. They reached the door to the final area, quickly shuffling in and closing it behind them before the shadows could react. "Alright, we're in the clear. At least until we find the floor officers." Makoto sighed, eyes scanning the room. It was stuffed with boxes, the bullets packaged up and being stored by a machine into cases that fell to the floor. "There's so many. Do you think they've actually produced this amount in the real world?" "I'm sure they've got quite a few, but palaces do tend to exaggerate a bit. Still, it's worrying to know that his plan is to produce the quirk-erasing bullets on this scale." Morgana's eyes narrowed, scanning the room. "I know he was trying to bring Yakuza to the forefront, but what would he need all this for? If his goal is to produce this much, he's not just trying to revive his clan." Izuku swallowed a lump in his throat, sweat trailing down his brow. "He's trying to wage war on hero society. You really think he's going that far? But that's insane." Morgana's jaw slightly slacked at the very idea. "He's just a thug, and that's a lofty aspiration. He likely never would have such goals if it wasn't for the discovery of the quirk-erasing bullets." Makoto held her chin in thought, the possibilities darkening her expression. "However they're made, he now has a monopoly on the one thing that could turn all of Japan on its head. We'll put a stop to him long before he sees any of those plans come to fruition. And save Eri-chan along the way." Izuku reassured them, always keeping that frightened girl in his mind as part of his motivation. He scanned the room again before looking up at an office overlooking the storage room. "We should check up there and see if the officers are around. Hopefully we can get the keys without a fight, but don't bother trying to get out of a brawl, brat." Izuku snapped his head around just in time to see a figure flying toward him. "Hero." Izuku had been reaching for his mask, getting ready to summon Carter, but Makoto had shoved him out of the way. Her upper body was coated with steel she absorbed from their surroundings. But the air pressure created by the blow alone was powerful enough to send her sailing back into the wall. "Queen." Izuku wailed in fear, quickly shuffling to his feet. "Zoro." Morgana didn't allow their opponent another chance, his persona materializing above and casting Garu. An intense gust billowed forth, enveloping their opponent. "Check on Queen." "Thank you." Izuku quickly dashed over to the dented wall, eyes scanning her Makoto in alarm. "Are you okay? It hit you hard." I'm okay," Makoto mumbled, blood trickling out of her mouth as she pulled herself from the wall. Her arms shook as she held them out. Despite being coated with steel, the blast had dented her forearms. "Hi Pixie." Izuku quickly cast diorama, recovering the damage dealt to her. "Thanks, well. Looks like that brat's pretty tough." Izuku and Makoto snapped their attention to the voice, the wind from Morgana's attack fading away and the dust clearing. A man stood tall, at least 6'4", with a muscular build and hands as large and thick as his skull. He wore a mostly tame attire with a tattered white shirt, black pants and a coat hanging from his pants held up by 2 belts. His oversized hands were wrapped with leather straps attached to metal knuckle gloves. And like his previous comrades, he wore a medicine mask, his noticeably different as it covered the entirety of his face, with his pinkish long hair flowing out the back and down to his shoulders. It was shaped more like an anteater's head as opposed to the more traditional beak look. He didn't take any damage. Morgana cried before noticing a light sheen of yellow light domed around the Yakuza. "Wait, is that a force field?" "Correct. Good eye, cat child." A man stepped out from behind the first, nearly as tall but a much leaner frame. He wore a traditional navy blue yukata with leather boots on his feet. His eyes looked perpetually closed and he wore the more familiar medicine mask as opposed to the full face one his comrade wore. "What you see before you is the strongest combination of offense and defense." "Shut it." Izuku and the others blinked when the more brutish of the two suddenly launched a barrage of punches at his companion. His fists were blocked by the man's shield though, clearly anticipating the attack before it was launched. I wasn't given a damn choice by Chisaki when he shoved us together. I wanted to feel the power of that attack and know what I'm fighting. Chisaki-sama. Refer to him properly. The other sighed, sounding mildly annoyed by his partner's demeanor. You shouldn't be so quick to indulge yourself, you battle-crazed lunatic. We have a job to do. I don't give a damn. I'll do my job by getting into some damn good fights to the death. His partner continued to hammer away at the shield. It didn't crack, despite the force. What a dysfunctional team, Morgana mumbled before looking back at Izuku and Makoto. Still, they're clearly no pushovers. Are you okay, Queen? I'm good now. Hiro healed me, but Makoto grimaced, eyes narrowing at the still quarreling Yakuza. That punch was the real deal. Be careful not to take a direct hit from it. Use your personas to guard against it if you can. Not to mention the speed he's throwing those punches at, Izuku muttered, teeth clenching as he summoned Carter. We should end this as quick as possible. You hear that, Tengai, they're raring to go. Now drop that damn barrier already. The aggressive one of the two snarled, cracking his oversized knuckles in anticipation. Fine, just be wary of their abilities. We still don't know what they're capable of, Rappa. The now-named Tengai pointed out, the sheen of light fading away from around the other. End it as quickly as possible, but leave one alive for questioning. If that's possible for you, of course. Glad we understand each other. But don't fucking count on any of them surviving. Rappa cackled, his body beginning to transform similar to those on the previous floor. The thieves paled as the already intimidating form began to turn into a hulking mass, Carter's height, but dwarfing him in bulk. The name's Rappa Kendo. I hope you brats can make my blood boil. What the hell's with these two? Bakugo gnashed his teeth together as his attempt to land an explosion on the hulking Yakuza Rukia was blocked, a wall of cement uplifted from the floor. Mimic, his companion, had left his body moments after the fight started and taken control of their environment. To the explosive blonde, this was more troubling than the more intimidating presence of Rukia. He could handle some muscle-bound monster, but Mimic ability to weaponize anything made it difficult to land any clean hits on the otherwise lumbering Rukia. Why can't we land a damn thing on this asshole? Ryuji clearly shared his frustration as he barked close behind. We have to locate his partner and disable him before worrying about the other. Yusuke suggested, eyes scanning around for Mimic. Good luck with that, punks. The cement was shattered as Rukia charged them, arm reared back for a big swing. The thieves narrowly dodged his large fist, the ground quaking upon impact. Die. Bakugo tried to jump on the opportunity, drawing his mask away and summoning Tombstone. The persona's smoking barrels leveled with Rukia's midsection, nuclear energy smoking as it prepared to blast into him. But before Bakugo could blast him, a pillar of cement crashed into his side, causing him to cough up in pain as he lost his focus. He was knocked several feet back, feet skidding across the ground as he stopped his trajectory. Nitro. You okay? Ann asked in concern, watching as he spat in irritation. I'm gonna murder that little bastard. Bakugo exploded with seething anger, hands shaking as he held both tomahawks. Looks fine to me. Ryuji sighed as they looked back at Rukia. Damn it, we're getting nowhere. Fox is right, we gotta take out that little guy before the big one. But we have to worry about the big guy rushing us on top of the entire room, throwing us around. Anne cursed, eyes looking around once again for Mimic. Then all of you look for the little bastard. Bakugo drew their attention as he stalked forward, eyes burning as he looked to meet Rukia head on. I'll keep that big bastard distracted while you idiots find him. You can't do that on your own. Not with the room flipping us everywhere. Ryuji pointed out, walking up next to him. I'll help Nitro out. Fox and Panther can do the looking. You brats can try and distract me all you want, it'll end the same. Rukia slammed his fists together, a small shockwave erupting on impact. I'll crush you first, then take the gal for some fun. Get going. Bakugo snarled back at the others, exploding forward and heading straight for Rukia. In anticipation of a wall blocking his path, Bakugo blasted the ground beneath him to sail higher, hoping to confuse both of the Yakuza and keep them guessing. Don't think you can just hop around all free like that, brat. Bakugo heard the roof above him begin to crackle, grimacing as a pillar of cement rocketed toward him. He quickly avoided it with a follow-up explosion, but that put him closer to Rukia, who was already winding up for a punch. Damn it. These sons of gotcha. A blur rushed at Rukia, the Yakuza not even getting the chance to blink, as a nailed bat struck him between the eyes with a loud crack, throwing him off balance. Bakugo grinned, taking the chance to rear his own hand back. Not bad, fake blondie. Bakugo cackled before throwing an explosion directly into Rukia's chest. Gra. The hulking Yakuza stumbled back, slamming his feet to regain his footing. Oi oi, Rukia. Don't forget they're working together now. I can't cover all your blind spots. Mimic's disembodied voice berated. They're slippery little bastards, I'll give them that. Rukia groaned, rubbing his face as Ryuji and Bakugo stood side by side, ready to jump at him again. I'll try and slow him down, but you gotta finish him off, Rukia. Can't keep this up unless I keep pumping in that trigger. Panther, on the northern edge of the ceiling. Yusuke pointed out, eyes narrowed as he could barely make out the mask sticking out of the wall, albeit just barely. I thought he'd need to be in a location he could see us all in. Take him down. Ah, they found me. Time to move. Mimic's mask sunk into the cement just as Yusuke and Anne opened fire with their guns, unable to put him away at that moment. He won't go far. He's still gotta see the whole damn room. Bakugo exclaimed before blasting forward and engaging Rukia again. I'll crush you long before then. Rukia lunged for Bakugo, but the explosive teen maneuvered above the swipe with an explosion. He delivered a concussive blast to his face as a follow-up, momentarily blinding him. Ryuji didn't let that be the end of it, dashing in with his quirk and smashing his pipe into Rukia's stomach. But Rukia seemed ready for a diversion, his left hand blindly swing out and grabbing hold of Ryuji by the waist. Gah! Bakugo snarled, attempting to stop the Cognition's attack with a blast, but Rukia struck first, batting him away into a stack of crates. You damn brats. I'll crush you. Rukia growled as he began to tighten his grip. As if to further weaken Ryuji's body, Rukia simultaneously inhaled a stream of energy from Ryuji after his quirk activated upon contact. Shit, I'm getting weaker, Ryuji gasped as the strength left his body. It was a struggle to stay conscious. His limbs felt like they were being stuffed with lead. Skull. Anne cried in panic, reaching for her mask to try and help. Focus on your job. Bakugo barked, swinging his tomahawks down and sinking them deep into the arm of Rukia. If you don't, this shit only gets harder. Gah. Get off me. Rukia snarled as he was forced to release Ryuji. I've got you, big fella. The wall formed long spikes and speared toward Bakugo and Ryuji. Yusuke acted first though, sword slashing through the spikes before they could reach the two. Panther. The east wall. He called out, continuing to slash as the spikes multiplied and kept him occupied. Anne's eyes did a quick glaze over it and found her target, the small bit of mask sticking out for her to find. Got it. Carmen. Looks like it's time for me to Miragi. A torrent of flame ignited the entire wall, leaving no room for him to escape this time as it burned. Gaagh. Mimic's diminutive form was forced out of the wall, its black veil of a body catching fire from Anne's onslaught. Well done, Panther. Now for the finale. Yusuke drew his mask away, Gomen appearing in a blaze of chains and blue flame. Fall. Gomen swung its bladed pipe, swiping it across Mimic's small body and cleaving it in half. Mimic. Rukia's arms momentarily dropped their guard, his husky voice distraught. You little brats. I'll kill you can die too. Bakugo grinned wickedly as stuck his hand between the gap of his arms and hit him with another concussive blast, causing him to stagger back. Skull. Let's go. Ryuji dashed forward alongside him, both drawing their masks off and summoning their personas. And showing a rare moment of synergy, they roared with an equal amount of intensity. Blow him away. Captain Kidd and Tombstone burst forth, cannon arm and triple-barreled gun aimed directly in Rukia's face. SH equals SHIII boom. A burnt orange and electric yellow explosion consumed Rukia's upper body, the hulking Yakuza wailing in pain as he was lifted off his feet and sent sailing back several meters. He hit the ground with a heavy thud, a small tremor passing through the area. The thieves slowly regrouped at the center of the room, eyes glued to the fallen Cognitions as they took a moment to catch their breath. Well, that wasn't too bad, Ryuji huffed, a grin slowly spreading across his face before looking at Bakugo. Not too shabby, newbie. You even used my codename for once. Shut up. Bakugo huffed, his eyes reluctantly meeting Ryuji's. You've at least got some guts, and despite your demeanor, your focus in battle was quite impressive. Yusuke was next to pay him a compliment, sheathing his sword. Keeping a cool head even when one of us is in danger did pay off. Yeah. You're really loud and obnoxious, but you're not bad at leading people. It's kind of a shock, really. Said Anne. How is that a shock? Bakugo huffed, only eliciting a laugh from his team members. Why you stupid kids, the thieves snapped their attention back to their downed opponent, Rukia, barely fidgeting where he lay. You lost already. Can it and give us your key card? Bakugo spat, unamused by the Cognition's words. Hey, you think I'm done? Something tightened in Rukia's thumb, causing the four to get into defensive postures. You brats wouldn't know the first thing about being beaten, Ryuji, and Bakugo instantly felt their limbs turn to jello as Rukia took a breath. Wow, what the F, I'm feeling weak, is that his damn quirk? It was only working on shit he touched before though. Bakugo's legs wobbled, no matter how hard he willed them to stop. His heart was pounding and his lungs heaved like he'd just run a marathon. Skull. Nitro. Anne quickly rushed to Ryuji's side with Yusuke, the two helping their teammates find their balance. Rukia slowly rose to his feet, his veins engorged with stolen energy. Steam radiated from his body as his skin reddened. What the hell happened to him? How'd he do that? Ryuji muttered, trying not to lean on Ant too much and find his balance. He must have taken trigger. It enhances a quirk well beyond its normal capabilities. Yusuke guessed, eyes narrowing at the cognition cautiously. You punks think you can just waltz in here and stop Yusaki's plans. Yusaki gave garbage like us at home. Rikiya's muscles trembled as his body continued to swell with power, lurching back and spreading his arms wide. Like hell we'd let his ambitions fall apart to brats like you. He swung his hands back together into a clap and through whom the ear-shattering sound was only a small part of the small shockwave that rocked the thieves. They were blasted off their feet. Anne and Ryuji crashed into the conveyor belt, breaking the machinery upon impact. Yusuke and Bakugo were thrown into the opposite wall hard enough to crack the concrete. What the hell was that? Ryuji gasped, slowly trying to rise and gritting his teeth. His power has gone up dramatically. Yusuke winced as he tried to peel himself out of the wall. Nitro, are you able to move? Why yes shit, Bakugo snarled, falling to his hands and knees just to escape the crater he made in the wall. Fox, we have to take the lead. Skull and Nitro were drained by his last move. Anne announced, setting Ryuji down as she stood in his defense, snapping her whip. Hell no. I can still fight. Bakugo snarled, ignoring the vertigo he felt trying to rise to his feet. No. If you want to help, you and Skull will have to fight from the rear. Support us with your long-ranged weapons, and he's charging. Anne alerted them, the steaming mass of a monster making the ground quake with every step he took toward them like a charging rhino. I'll tear y'all limb from limb. Rikiya darted directly for Yusuke, his frame looming over them as he extended his arms out to crush him. Dance, Carmen. Anne blasted Rikiya's side with a blaze from an Agilao spell, stopping his immediate approach. Yusuke took his momentary halt to grab Bakugo and move, getting out of his range for the moment. I can. Bakugo began to complain, but hesitated when he realized he couldn't move that well on his own. Don't think you can run from me. The cognition snarled before lifting its leg and stomping the ground. It caused a tremor strong enough to knock Yusuke off his feet, he and Bakugo rolling across the ground. Damn. Gomen. Yusuke drew his mask away, his persona taking shape and swinging its bladed pipe down on the cognition's shoulder. To his chagrin, Rikiya only flinched from the attack, his knees bending as he absorbed it. But that reaction aside, he was still standing, a blood-curdling growl hissing out of his mouth. The cognition reached forward and grabbed Gomen by the shirt. You're all gonna die. Rikiya slammed Gomen into the ground, the damage reflecting in Yusuke as his back tensed in pain. While the damage done wasn't directly proportionate to what Gomen took, it was still a clearly powerful blow. Get away from them. Anne drew her Uzi replica to unleash a hail of bullets. Rikiya paused in his pursuit of Yusuke again to shield his face with his arm. The bullets harmlessly bouncing off his skin even if he grunted in annoyance. I ain't taking no hostages anymore, you can die with the rest of 'em. He snarled, digging his hands into the ground and uplifting a chunk to flip onto her. You ain't hurting anyone either. Ryuji sat up with his shotgun in hand and blasting off. Their barrage was enough to slow him down, his veins continuing to swell as he continued to attempt to tear the floor out from under them. Gomen, strike. Yusuke took the chance and blasted Rikiya across the back with a torrent of ice. Gaw. Rikiya's upper body was encased in ice, Yusuke relieved and not allowing the chance to be squandered. He's vulnerable. We need to strike now. Yusuke drew his blade, preparing to launch a head-on attack. I won't lose to some brats. The cognition roared as he struggled against the coat of ice. Graw. With an agonizing growl, he tore himself out of his icy prison, leaving torn muscles and skin on the jagged ice. It went that far. Yusuke gaped at the cognition's determination, his feet rooted in place as Rikiya turned to him and swung his arm. Fox, look out. Anne screeched, reaching up for her mask. Yusuke attempted to dodge but had reacted too slow, the arm swinging around and approaching like a truck. Move, idiot. Yusuke found himself being launched backward as he was suddenly shoved. Bakugo had muscled his way to his feet and tackled Yusuke out of the way. The result ended up being Bakugo instead taking the swing, blood spilling from his mouth as he was batted away, sent flying across the room. Nitro. Ryuji screamed, teeth gnashing as he forced himself up. Captain Kid. With the last ounce of stamina left in his body, he sent his persona sailing forward into Rikiya's back, smashing apart the ice still frosting his back and with it a portion of his upper body. You'll pay for that. And then followed up by summoning Carmen, unleashing a torrent of flames that burned across his upper body. Thank you, Nitro, Yusuke muttered, clenching his jaw as he rushed forward. And now the finishing blow. Gomen. Rikiya could only watch in horror as Gomen thrust its blade through his chest, black sludge spewing from the wound as Rikiya's body finally gave out. Damn it, the cognitive Rikiya sank to his knees, his body finally giving out. After all that to a bunch of brats till you'll never beat Chisaki. As Rikia's body began to fade, the streams of energy that he had once inhaled left his mask. Ryuji soon felt his energy return, blinking as he flexed his hands. I'm back to normal shit, Nitro. Ryuji quickly scrambled to his feet with Anne, the two running forward with Yusuke to where Bakugo had landed. Ryuji slid on the ground next to him, eyes searching over him. Nitro, you okay? You're not dead, right? Like hell I am, Bakugo coughed, sitting up and wincing as he held his arm. Here, I can heal you. Don't move. Anne offered, raising a hand and allowing a veil of green healing magic to surround Bakugo. You saved me from that blow. You have my gratitude. Yusuke looked down, bowing his head in guilt. If you hadn't stepped in save it I was just paying you back, Bakugo huffed, pushing off the ground to stand. The others offered to help him up, but Bakugo clearly wanted to do it on his own. I'm fine. Let's move on. If you're really okay to move, Anne mumbled, eyes trailing away before landing where the cognition had faded. Hey, look. His keycard. Hell yeah. I'll bet we'll be able to use the elevator now. Ryuji grinned. Only if Hiro and the others were able to acquire the officer's keycard from that side as well. Yusuke said with a frown. You think they're okay? It was just the three of them, Anne muttered, biting her bottom lip. They better be. I'll kill them if they're dead. Bakugo huffed, walking toward the exit. Let's go. That cloth bastard's gone now so we can probably get back just fine. Always the positive one, huh? Ryuji rolled his eyes, beginning to follow before stopping. Hey wait, you think there's a clean room for that Chisaki asshole like on the first floor? The others came to a halt, looking back at Ryuji before trailing to the office sitting above the area. Let's get our blood boiling. Izuku grit his teeth as Rappa threw a punch rushed their way, quickly backstepping with Makoto and Morgana at his side. Don't let him get close. Use magic instead. Izuku ordered, drawing his mask away and summoning Shiasa. Zio. Ga. The thunder spell surged through Rappa's body, paralyzing him. He's vulnerable. Shouted Morgana, Makoto close behind him. Don't let him make another move. Zoro. Johanna. Rappa's body was thrown back by the wind and nuclear energy, his feet dragging across the ground. But he refused to allow himself to fall. Come on now, long-range moves, Rappa growled, flexing his arms as he tried to shrug off the damage. I want this up close and personal. You should take our opponent's tactics into account, Rappa. They're not going to play your game the way you want them to, said Tengai, fingers stroking his forehead. But if you wish to keep charging in blindly, then by all means. TCH fine. Rappa growled in reluctance. You can shield up. But only when they use that long-range shit. I can operate with such parameters. Tenga nodded, his closed eyes furrowing as he honed in on their opponents. The one in the white mask seems to be the leader. Aim for him first. The leader, huh? Then he should be the strongest, right? You got it. Rappa charged at Izuku again. He's charging again. Don't let him get close. Izuku once again summoned Shiasa, the persona letting out a howl of lightning. Tengai. On it. The yellow sheen barrier surrounded Rappa, the Zio spell dispersing across it harmlessly. We'll have to change targets to his partner, Hiro. We can't land any hits while he's around. Makoto suggested, revving up Johanna and driving forward past Rappa. Feel my rage. Makoto drove the front wheel of Johanna down on Tengai, but her eyes flared the moment she realized a barrier protected him. What? Did you think I couldn't project multiple barriers? Not surprising, but one must expect a possibility. Tengai declared, his closed eyes tightening. Rappa. Hell yeah, keep the other two back. Rappa cackled as he charged at Makoto with his fists already pistoning in the air, launching a barrage ready to engage with Makoto. She's got some guts, so I'll test her again. Queen, watch out. Izuku cried in fear, quickly switching to Carter. Morgana was already summoning Zoro, unleashing a blast of wind to try and stop Rappa in his tracks. Unfortunately, a barrier was already blocking them off. Come on, biker girl. Show me what you're made of. Rappa laughed as he continued to charge. Makoto turned to him with eyes wide in shock. But she quickly dismissed her caution, Johanna disappearing and red eyes narrowing as she gripped her knuckledusters. You want to see what I've got? Fine. Makoto rushed right at Rappa, meeting his fists with a flurry of her own. The Yakuza wasn't expecting such retaliation, Makoto catching him on the chin through his mask with her punches at first. Rappa staggered back. His smile vanished for a moment as he processed what just happened. But soon he was grinning like a hunter who had just found worthy game. Damn, kid. You're ballsier than I thought. You're amazing. Rappa laughed wildly, quickly resuming his attack and meeting Makoto punch for punch. Show me what you've got. I'm not going down. Makoto coated her arms in steel again and once again met him head-on. Woe Queen's taking him on blow for blow, Morgana mumbled in awe, eyes widening behind the mask on his head. She is, but look. Sweat glistened across his skin as he watched the exchange. Makoto was holding her ground, but Rappa's punches clearly had more weight behind them. Her feet were digging into the ground. The metal protecting her arms was already buckling beneath Rappa's onslaught. "We can't let this go on for much longer," Izuku said, brow furrowing as he summoned Carter. "This barrier won't stop us. We're smashing through. Hold on just a little longer, Queen." Tengai's eyes finally opened as he stared upon Carter's visage, the persona's hand igniting with light as Izuku began to charge up for an attack. "Rappa. Turn your attention away from the girl. The enemy is going to try and break through the barrier. I ain't disrespecting the opponent in front o' me. Can't you see we're beating each other to death?" Rappa snapped in defiance, continuing to hammer his fists against hers. Blood was spilling from her mouth and the metal across her body was beginning to fade. "I can't stop now. I have to keep it up and let Izuku charge up to break through. That's right. Don't you dare back out on me now." Makoto dug deep and felt her muscles scream as she forced her quirk to hold on just a little while longer. She needed power. Enough to break through this never-ending storm of punches. Her persona responded to her will, the power of Frey coursing through her fists. Each blow against Rappa now burned with nuclear energy, causing him to buck his head back. "Did you get stronger? Fucking A, girl. You've got way more spirit than I ever coulda imagined." Rappa turned up the intensity of his punches, turning a storm into a deluge. Makoto's guard lapsed, a blow finding its way into her stomach. Her legs nearly gave out from under her then and there, but she dug her heels in and let out a ferocious roar, fighting through the pain as blood and dents covered her body. "Rappa. You need to turn around. They're going to break Virginia smash." The barrier shattered like glass before Carter's fist and Izuku's will. The light breaching the barrier continued forth, engulfing Rappa like a tidal wave and carrying him into Tengai. The gangsters were sent flying into the opposite wall and buried deep inside. Izuku stood at the ready for the cognitions to rise back up, he and Morgana watching the crater carefully. But as the dust settled, both cognitions laid unconscious, backs planted in the wall, and heads hanging limply in defeat. Izuku breathed out in relief before turning his attention to Makoto. "Queen." He and Morgana quickly rushed to her side, seeing blood trailing down her arms and face as she shook. Makoto's breathing was ragged as her shoulders rose and fell with each breath. Finally her legs gave out, but Izuku was thankfully there to catch her and slowly lower her down so that they were seated on the ground. "Koto-san, are you okay?" "Why yeah, I'm okay," she mumbled, leaning her head into his shoulder to rest. "Thanks for not taking too long, don't worry, Queen. I'll get you healed up right now. Though it's not going to fix everything." Morgana mumbled, summoning Zoro and washing a diorama spell over her. "I'm so sorry you had to deal with that on your own, I'm so sorry," Izuku mumbled, arms cradling her clothes as he let her rest. "Oh shut up," Makoto giggled, flicking his head weakly. "You would have done the same thing, but you're not the only one who can go plus ultra, you know, you went beyond that." Izuku breathed shakily but kept his tears back as he smiled. "You were incredible. It reminded me a lot of why I always looked up to you." Huh. It's almost odd to hear him say that. Makoto smiled, momentarily resting her eyes. "It feels like I've been looking up to him lately." "There, all healed. Are you feeling better now?" Morgana asked, Makoto opening her eyes and stretching her arms out. "Yeah, though admittedly, the healing spells don't fix everything." Makoto slowly stood up, her body sore, even though every sign of injury had vanished. "I wasted a lot of energy for that last stand, but I should be okay to keep going. We'll get the key cards and then regroup with everyone. I think returning to the real world for today might be our best option," Izuku said, staying close to make sure she was steady on her feet. The cognitions should. Izuku quickly drew his staff up, Makoto and Morgana quickly following suit when they realized Rappa was on his feet, standing before them bruised and battered. "How tough is this thing?" Morgana cursed, sword pointed. "That was a haluva brawl, girl." Rappa seemed to ignore the others though, his eyes drawn to Makoto. She blinked in surprise, but kept her guard up. "Yeah, it was. I barely hung on. But you did. You were goddamn amazing." Rappa dug into his pocket, drawing out a key card and dropping it on the ground. "Hope we'll get to really brawl it out someday." With those final words, the cognition's body suddenly began to fade, dissipating into thin air. The three slowly lowered their guard, looking around and realizing both cognitions had faded away. "That was odd." Makoto mumbled, leaning over and taking the badge. "They were just cognitions, right? Not shadows." "No, they weren't, but they certainly had more personality than a typical cognition would," Morgana admitted, eyes trailing to the side in thought. "Perhaps because they live in such close proximity to the palace ruler, the personalities of their real-world counterparts were reflected in them." "You really think so?" Izuku asked, a little bewildered. "I can't say for sure. There's still a few things I don't completely understand about shadows and the palaces," Morgana admitted with some shame. It's possible that he knows their personalities this well that they translate into his cognition, but from what we know of Chisaki, I get the feeling that's not it. It's probably best not to worry too much about it. We have other priorities at the moment. Makoto said, offering the key card to Izuku. At least we have this now. We can head back and hopefully get to the other side. I hope the others are alright. Yeah, Izuku nodded, eyes trailing up to the office. Though I was wondering, about what? Asked Morgana. I wonder if there's an office for Chisaki like there was upstairs. Izuku's lips thinned into a line. I'll be right back. Crap, they ain't here yet. Ryuji cursed, looking around the elevator room urgently. Come on. Let's go see if they're still on the other side. Wait, Skull. We can't rush too much. Nitro's still feeling weak. Anne said, though clearly sharing his concern as she frowned. I'm fine. We can keep going. Bakugo winced as he tried to move, but attempted to ignore it. While I am concerned for Nitro's health, we still don't know exactly how Yusuke began, but paused when the opposite door they came from slid open. The thieves brought up their weapons in urgency, but lowered them when Izuku walked in with Makoto leaning on his shoulder. Hero. Ryuji exclaimed before rushing over and grabbing Makoto's other side. Hey. You okay, Queen? Be gentle with her. I've healed what I could, but it's not perfect. Morgana advised, eyes filled with concern. I'm alright, just took a bit of damage in the last fight. Makoto sighed, relieved to feel some pressure taken off of her when Ryuji helped her. Thank you. It's good to see everyone's alright. Of course we are, they had me. Bakugo scoffed, but Izuku and Makoto quickly noted that he was nursing his side and his thief attire was the most worn among them. As much as I hate to admit it, Nitro was a big help. Anne gave a half smile back to their newest member. We ran into a bit of trouble toward the end. Same with us. But seeing as we all made it through alright, we can relax a bit. Morgana smiled, glad to see them back together as a big group. Yeah. But with the amount of damage Queen and Nitro have taken today, I think we'll have to call it for today. Izuku suggested. Bakugo's jaw clenched. I said I'm fine. It's not just for you, but Queen as well. Bakugo turned to Makoto. Seeing her wince, his expression softened. Bakugo clicked his tongue, but drew his eyes away. TCH. Fine, we better be back soon though, we're almost through this damn place. We will once you're both back up to full strength. We've got around a week and a half to finish the palace, but I think we're making good time. Izuku reassured, earning a relenting huff from Bakugo. Sounds good to me. It was pretty rough splitting up like we did, but at least we made it through. Ryuji nodded in agreement. You won't get any argument on my end. I'm pretty beat too. Said Anne. Then let us retreat. We'll reconvene once we've all recovered. Yusuke reaffirmed, the thieves gathering at the elevator and calling it to bring them back up. Oh yeah, hero. I nabbed this while we were on the other side. Ryuji drew out a cassette from his pocket, handing it to Izuku. I figured you might want to give it a listen if you still got that tape recorder on you. Oh, yeah I do. Izuku drew said item out, holding the other tape he had collected from the office. I found one on the other side, too. Let's listen to yours first. Izuku took the cassette from Ryuji, inserting it and clicking play. Kai Chisaki's log, June 10, 20XX. I've started getting the clan into cooking and distributing trigger. There were several detractors from the old times that opposed the idea, calling it below our standards. I quickly erased them from the equation. Just for disagreeing. Piece of SHH. Anne hushed him, wanting to hear more. Trigger remains a useful tool for now, but it only helps with the short-term issues. It also comes with a good number of risks as well, but we don't have much choice. The family has been skirting by thanks to the old man's businesses, but even that's beginning to run dry due to his absence. It'll work for now. Buy me more time to continue working on other projects. Let's hope these incompetent old-timers don't screw it up and get us all pinched by then. The tape came to an end, causing the three to share a short look. Well, at least we know what other projects he was working on. Makoto spoke first, eyes narrowed. Trigger was just a means to that end. Who's the old man he mentioned? We ain't seen anyone like that so far. Ryuji tapped his foot, feeling as if he were missing something. From the sound of it, his predecessor. He's likely retired in this case, or deceased. But considering this line of work, it's not likely. Yusuke guessed, arms crossed over his waist. Probably got off it by this asshole. Bakugo spat. No filter with you as always, Makoto sighed, looking at Izuku. Play the next one, hero. Right. Izuku took out the first tape and put in the next. Kai Chisaki's log, November 21st, 20XX. The progress on the quirk erasing bullets has advanced tremendously. It took much trial and error, but we've gotten to a stage in which we can produce the erasing effect for a short period of time. It's not perfect, only able to erase a quirk for 5 seconds. But with each test, we extend the length of erasure. We have several interested parties looking to invest in the project, but they expect more results. We need proper tests. I don't like the idea, but we don't have much choice. We will begin selling the prototype on the street and use them collect data. Our connections within the police can provide us with the statistics. A silence followed after that, and Izuku thought it was over. Well, at least we know that by last November, they weren't. Her body seems to be a bit frailer of late. I'll have to be a little more careful during the next production. Izuku felt his throat dry shrivel up. A million thoughts were going through his head. None of them left his lips. He slowly drew his eyes back to the recorder, almost as if he expected to hear more. What did he mean by that? Ryuji swallowed a lump in his throat. You think he was talking about Eri-chan? What does she have to do with the quirk erasing bullets? Anne mumbled. Hiro Makoto called Izuku. His eyes remained affixed on the tape recorder, his hands trembling. Hiro, you have to snap out of it. Morgana took the hand holding the tape recorder to force Izuku's eyes off of it. It's okay. That's why we're here, right? We'll save her no matter what. Yeah. So don't waste your energy on it. It was surprisingly Bakugo's voice that stretched out with reason. We're gonna send that beak-faced bastard to hell either way. Just look forward to that. Still, one thing is clear. The pain she is suffering is nothing new or recent, said Yusuke. We'll be back soon. Once everyone's healed up. Izuku said, eyes tightening behind his mask as he took a deep breath. And we'll save her and put an end to this. The thieves weren't sure if Izuku was saying that for himself or for the others, but they silently gave their agreement. With that, the thieves retreated from the palace and left to the real world. Ugh. It's starting to hit me now just how tired I am. Anne stuck her tongue out, hunching over slightly as she stood with the thieves by the cafe they had previously used as their entrance to the palace. Indeed. I think retreating was the best course of action. We'll be more than ready for what the third floor has waiting for us. Yusuke nodded, eyes seemingly struggling to stay open. Don't make me wait too long or I'll go and finish it all on my own. Bakugo huffed, slinging his school bag over his shoulder. I'm out of here. Hey. Bakugo paused, sparing a look back at Ryuji. The faux blonde watched him with a frown and scratched the back of his head. I still think you're a loud mouth and an asshole. TCH. Bakugo started to turn but stopped when Ryuji held out his fist. But I think you're not that bad. You had our backs in there and you know it seems like you were really trying. So I'm willing to let bygones be bygones if you are. How about it? Bakugo stared at his hand, eyebrow cocked before turning away. You're an idiot. Ryuji nearly tripped at his answer but straightened up when he continued. But at least you're not in the way when we're fighting. A simple sure why not Waldo worked. Ryuji sighed but gave a small smirk in return. Hope you're ready to shred the palace next time we're in. That's my line. You'd better be even faster next time. You better be ready, Sakamoto. And the rest of you. Bakugo gave a brief smirk before turning his back on them, walking off and leaving the thieves behind. Huh. He actually remembered your name, Anne giggled, hands crossed behind her back. Guess I'll take that bit of progress. I as well. It was unstable at first, but I believe we've come to an understanding with him. Yusuke nodded in affirmation. That's good to hear. We were worried he might still be hard to work with. Makoto smiled in relief. Thank you for giving him a chance. I'm sure he'll still be a pain, but we can deal with Ryuji, so it's not that big of a deal. Anne teased, nudging the faux blonde. Hey, what's that supposed to mean? Ryuji huffed. I'm kidding Anne. Hey. Thanks for trying to look out for me in there. Anne smiled more kindly. I appreciate it. Huh? Ah yes. You sounded quite chivalrous standing up for Anne. I too was moved when you spoke on her behalf. Yusuke added, looking and sounding genuine much to Ryuji's embarrassment. What? Nah, I wouldn't say all that. Just kinda came out of nowhere. Ryuji rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. See chivalrous? Why you're kidding me. How could a doofus like Ryuji be chivalrous? Morgana complained with his back arched and every hair standing on end. Up yours, cat. I can be. Ryuji trailed off when his eyes found Izuku, who was standing apart from the others. Ryuji walked over and placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. Hey, man. It's okay. We're gonna get it done. What? Izuku drew his gaze to him, suddenly becoming nervous under the concerned gazes of his friends. Oh, right, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to worry you guys, Izuku couldn't escape his grief so easily, his eyes falling to the ground. I'm sorry. I'm just going to head home. Everyone get your rest, okay? We'll be going back and when we're all ready. Izuku's friends watched him leave without another word, Morgana jogging over to catch up to him. He was silent the rest of that night, the last words of the recording hanging over him like a stormy cloud that wouldn't leave. Not until he knew that Eri was safe and away from Chisaki. To be continued. This is the end of the video. If you enjoyed the story, then hit the like button and comment your favorite part, but for now see you all in the next video.